He tries to make Matt cry, but he never wins 'cause Matt's an awesome guy.
A car crashed into a building. That's the 30th one this year. If they didn't put those buildings there, the road would be clear. Just driving along without a care. Next thing you know, a building is right there.
Go see John.
Good evening, everybody on the live stream. We're about to come in here. Hold on. Let's stop that music. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's get the Zoom pulled up here, and I'll say hi to everybody. Hi, Jeff. Hey, John.
Hey, Matt.
How you guys doing?
Good. How about you?
You know, it's winter.
Oh, no fun.
No.
I have a tendency to diminish the enjoyment for me.
Yeah, me too. Me too. No end in sight, it looks like.
No, give it a week.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Don't get my hopes up, John.
I'm a meteorologist. Give
I
it a
know
week.
you are. Don't get my hopes up. I have a fear that it's not going to leave till May.
Oh, that's what it feels like.
It is.
That's sure.
Now, Jeff, your phone is sideways.
Sideways.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, I got it sideways. That's interesting.
Right. So I think what you probably started it where you were holding it upright, and then it like locked it in at that perspective. So you'd probably have to go out, turn it landscape. Oh, wait.
Is that good?
Yeah, now you're
Yeah,
back. Yeah. Just
All
whatever you're doing, keep it that way.
Okay.
All right.
Wow.
Now I got to figure out a way. Usually I do this on Google Meeting, and I don't know how to hide myself on this, because usually I hide it so we can see you guys. So let me just see here for a second. No, that's not doing anything.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so we're recording this.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
And by the way, we're live streaming this to our patrons. And then we will put this out for free later when I edit it.
Live streaming. Hello, patrons.
Yeah.
Somebody I know out there, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, there's let's see. Usually, we got 6 so far. So we'll see if anybody else comes on in. Hello, Ken. Hello, Dustin. Hello, Eric. Hello, Valerie. How are you guys? And Tim, how are you? All right, let me figure this out here, because we don't need to look at me. We don't need to look at me. So what can I do here? Spotlight for everyone, for every name. No way to get rid of me, huh? All right, well, it's okay. All the cameras are recording, so we'll, no, wait a second. We don't want to do this. Hold on here, guys. Sorry. I like I said, I normally do this on another program, so I'm able to
Ricky chime in.
minimize myself. I really liked that Sacred Trust talk you guys did. You have a good routine, by the way, where you trade off with
Thank
each
you.
other.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. You can tell you actually like put some thought into it and worked on it together, you know?
We definitely did. But we don't get to rehearse much since John's in State College and I'm over here at the beach. And
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He refuses to come see me, and I refuse to go see him.
so we meet in Gettysburg
Well,
twice, right?
that makes it even better then.
Yeah, that's right.
Does anybody in the audience use Zoom often enough to know how to get rid of yourself so that we could just see the others? Maybe let's see if I can.
I don't know how to do that.
You don't know? Okay. Maybe someone.
I mean, to me, there's only a couple views.
Yeah, that's right. You can scroll those different views. I don't know if that changes anything.
Yeah.
For you.
Well, actually, under the view on top of my screen, there's a view button. And if I click view, it says hide self view.
Where is that on view?
On my screen, Matt, at the top,
Okay.
upper right,
Okay.
there is a button that says view. Do you
yeah.
have that?
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
And then if I click that, one of my choices is hide self view.
Hide, it's show self view. Mine says, that's weird. Mine says show self view, but I don't want to see.
I now cannot see myself. I just clicked on hide self view. Now I'm going to show self view again. Now I can see myself.
So when you talk, do you see yourself as the main image?
When I speak at the moment, no, I see the three of us, but I am not popping up as the only person.
Okay. So now, see, so I just put it on hide self view, but now I see myself. I'm trying to get rid of myself.
I understand. And I'm telling you that when I clicked hide self view,
Yeah.
I went away.
Right. So for me, the self view is just the three little thumbnails on the top of the screen, but I still come through. Hide non-video participants. Let's see what that does. That does nothing. Okay. Show self view. Yeah, when I hit show self view, it just puts me up top there. Follow host video order. Gallery, multi-speaker, immersive. Multi-speaker, what is that? Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Okay. All right. So far, I think this is working here. What did that notification just say? Okay, Justin Gettysburg's talking, but I see the two of you. Okay, as long as it stays this way, I think we'll be okay in the recordings. I'm just trying to get the recording of my laptop to just get you guys, because it would be a pain in the neck if I had to keep doing it, cutting myself out. All right, I think this is going to work. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, good. All right, good. People seem to be interested in this here. Good.
Matt, I checked with the publicist today, and he swore that he sent you something. So it may be buried up there, but we'll get you a copy one way, shape, form, or another. He says, "Could you walk one over to him?" I said,
"It's quite a walk."
If I was in town.
Yeah, I was home all day. I just I'm buried mentally from the snow. Like it took everything I had to bring myself down here to do this tonight. I was like, yeah, I could go to one of the stores and get a copy of it, but I just can't leave. I can't leave. I'm done. So, if it's somewhere, hold on. There's one more place I got to check. Let me see. Hold on. No, well, It'll turn up someday, somehow, some way, when I won't need it.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Okay. Let me get the mouse off of there, and let's get it started if you guys are ready, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good. Here we go.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today we've got, I think, an interesting topic, a special topic, if you will. You know, if you've followed the show long enough, you know that we don't just stick to troop movements on the battlefield and, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, as interesting as that is, that's kind of the thing that gets our attention. But there's so much more that goes into making the battle what it was. And one of those things is weather. And if you've ever visited Gettysburg in July or June or August or during the summer months, you know how hot it can get. But you and I and everybody else have an automobile with air conditioning to escape into, a hotel with a pool to cool off at the end of the day, a restaurant with ice cold beer to go to for dinner with air conditioning inside. None of these things existed for the soldiers who fought here at Gettysburg in 1863. These guys must have stunk from all of the sweating and grime and heat that they endured. And with us today are two guys who have been studying weather, perhaps obsessively, but to our benefit. It's Jeffrey Harding and Jon Nese. They are here to talk about their latest book, The Weather Gods Curse the Gettysburg Campaign, and they join me via Zoom. Welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here.
Great to be here, Matt.
Thank you.
It's great to have you guys. All right, so this is very interesting. I watched your talk from the Foundation's Sacred Trust Talks last year, and I found it so riveting. People might be saying, it's the weather. What the hell's so riveting about the weather? But it's so, I wouldn't care about it if it wasn't surrounding the Battle of Gettysburg, the Gettysburg campaign. It's not just the battle, it's the campaign. And what's fascinating to me, the first thing that really got me, and it always gets me, and I think I call this modern day arrogance, that they really kept records of the weather beyond temperature and is the sun out or is it cloudy? You know what I mean? You don't think of that, but you guys go into the Smithsonian's weather study program and the Naval Yard and everything. Kind of, if you can, paint a picture of the background of the study of weather in 1863 in the United States.
Yeah, John, take that.
Well, I want to first say, Matt, that I hope one day my students are as riveted to my lecture presentation. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, the state of weather in the United States in the years leading up to the Civil War. The Smithsonian had opened in 1850-ish, and to some extent, there were some weather observers in the U.S. prior to the Smithsonian, but most of those were absorbed more or less under the heading of the Smithsonian during the 1850s. And so pre-Civil War, there was actually, compared to modern day weather networks, there weren't that many, but there were dozens of observers scattered across mainly the eastern United States. And then when the Civil War began, most of the observers in the South stopped observing, where they stopped reporting. But in the North, you still had some observers in places such as Gettysburg, Harrisburg, Washington, D.C., Frederick, Maryland, for example, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, where the records are available. And thanks to a lot of work by Jeff, and I'll let him sort of finish the story, we were able to unearth as much data as we could possibly find to kind of rebuild what was going on during the Gettysburg campaign.
So it's kind of like finding a Nielsen family today. Like they still exist, but not everybody does it because not everybody watches regular TV anymore. Is that kind of the way it was when the South stopped keeping records?
Sure, we'll go with that.
It's probably not apples to apples, but okay. So Jeff, go ahead. How'd you find all this stuff?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate. I started out really, Matt, because as a guide, you're going to get asked about the weather, and I had understood that we had a weather observer in Gettysburg. Didn't know his tie to the Smithsonian at the time. Knew that he, of course, was one of the founding instructors at college, Pennsylvania College. We know as Gettysburg College, and was very good observer. And we knew because of him, for instance, on the third day of the battle, 87 degrees at 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell people that's the best we have. Three times a day, Professor Jacobs would observe the weather. But it always ate at me that I couldn't give him more information. And I wanted to go and find his source documents. The best that most people were relying upon was an article in 1885, I believe it was, written by his son, based upon his dad's records, which laid out the weather a couple days before the battle, during the battle, and a couple days after. But I wanted to see the source documents, so started hunting. And fortunately, like I said, was blessed to find it through an individual down at a NOAA location down in Asheville, the NCEI. And boy, you mentioned this to me, Matt. It was so cool to see it in the book. I mean, it put the hair up on my neck. There it is, the real McCoy, right?
Right.
And at that time, I wasn't aware of anyone that had seen these things. Now, it turns out John, being the astute professor that he is, had seen these and done reports based upon them. There was a meteorologist and weather historian, David Leedlum, in the early 1960s, really wrote what I think John would agree, a groundbreaking article analysis of the weather during the battle. And he had seen them, obviously. And Robert K. Krick had seen these because he published the book, Civil War Weather in Virginia. And he wasn't specifically, of course, focusing on Gettysburg. He was looking at weather records from Georgetown, D.C., if you will, and using that to extrapolate for Virginia. Later on, you'll see some in Ken No. That comes a little after when I had originally found these and some others. But bottom line is, there they are. And will it give me more than we already know? And that's when I turned to John, and we always kid because, I made a phone call, and God bless him, he answered it. And here we are, John, almost 10 years later.
Yeah.
We're still on the subject.
You still have yet to meet each other where the other one lives, right? You refuse to go visit.
No, can't do that. Too far. But I just called to thank him because he had co-authored another book where they talked a little bit about Jacobs. That helped me get started, and I wanted to thank him. And then I said, John, I've got these records. I don't know, one end of the thermometer from another. How about taking a look at this and let me know if there's anything that'll give us heat index? Because that's what I really wanted to get at. What did it really feel like to the soldiers? And so John took a look, and he said, Jeff, this is great, and yeah, I've seen these and everything, but you need more. You need something. Here comes the curveball. You need wet bulb temperature. And I said, okay, I knew you were going to say that, John. But yeah.
Well, let's slow down a little bit here.
Yeah.
Let's slow down. Back to Matt's original point, which is that there were observers, but there weren't many. The observers that we knew of observed the weather 3 times a day.
Yes.
And they mostly did have more than a thermometer. Matt, they had other instruments, such as a barometer, which measures pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have wind direction and speed measuring instruments. And one of the great parts of doing this project was there was a special observer in Washington, D.C. at the Naval Observatory, a place where you would expect the measurements to be really good. And they were measuring the weather 8 times a day.
Wow.
And they also had special thermometers at the Naval Observatory that most of the other observers didn't have. And those special thermometers enabled them to know what the highest and lowest temperatures were every day. And as you know, Matt, if you've watched a weather report on television, they always tell you what the high and the low were, and that's important. And
well, let me stop you there, if I may.
yeah,
Why do you need special thermometers to tell you the high and the low? Couldn't one do both as the temperature changes?
well, if you were continuously looking at the thermometer the entire day, you could watch when it reaches its highest level and you could watch when it reaches its lowest level. But these observers were only looking at the thermometers 8 times a day.
Right.
There are special thermometers when the mercury goes up in the tube. There are special thermometers that will capture the highest value and then capture the lowest value. And those are specially made thermometers that not hardly anyone has.
So it like almost records the highest point it hit, and then you can go and see. That is so cool. Oh man. So okay. Well, I don't want to get into
that's the critical thing too, Matt, because Jacobs, he wasn't even doing 8 times a day. He was just doing 3 times a day.
Right.
So to tell somebody 87 degrees in the shade at 2 p.m., that's nice, but how hot did it get?
Well,
and again,
you,
what was the heat index?
And you said in the shade at 2 p.m., which that's important too, because
and it's temperatures or shade measurements, and we can get into all this.
But before we do, let John, if you can continue with the instruments that they use, because you guys go into all these things, and it's really interesting.
So, one instrument that Jacobs did not have, that many of the other observers did have, was a special thermometer called a wet bulb thermometer. And I won't get into the details of how it works, but the bottom line is, with that instrument, you can come up with a measure of humidity, how humid it is.
Yeah.
And if you know that and you know the actual air temperature, you can compute the heat index, which is sort of the feels like temperature that blends the heat and the humidity. And that's what Jeff was after. And Jacobs didn't have that thermometer. Why he didn't have it, we don't know. But he didn't have it. So what we did was we found some locations around Gettysburg where the observers had that special thermometer, where you could compute the humidity, and then we used that data to build the picture in Gettysburg.
And like, how far away are we talking? Frederick, Harrisburg?
Well, Harrisburg is about 35 miles from Gettysburg. The naval, Washington, D.C., of course, is much far. I don't have the distance memorized, but
about 70.
About 70. But when the armies were moving north through Virginia to get to Gettysburg, they weren't that far from Washington, D.C. And you can make meteorological arguments about extrapolating certain bits of information based on the overall weather pattern. And I was able to tap into a resource that's available to anyone who wants to use it online. You pay for with your tax dollars from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's a website where you can rebuild weather maps from the past.
Yes.
And so we were able to rebuild some weather maps from that period in 1863 that allowed me to sort of see the big picture of what the weather was doing. So it legitimizes the idea of sort of extrapolating weather data from one location to another, because we know how the weather tends to operate during the summer, and Washington, D.C. is warmer by a few degrees.
Right.
And so you can make some reasonable assumptions, and that's what we did. We blended official weather observations with this reconstruction system where I could draw maps. And then Jeff compiled 450 pages of a Word document filled with quotes from the soldiers and from citizens that told us more about the weather, what they were feeling at the ground. So you blend all this stuff together and you begin to put a story together.
There was a term that you mentioned in the talk called, now I forget what it is, the sun temperature. Is that right? The sun temperature. And this is fascinating, and I'm jumping ahead because this is particularly pertinent, I think, if you're thinking about the men prior to Pickett's charge, and I think you make this point, the Confederates especially, but all of them really, I guess, who are laying down on the ground. What is sun temperature? And I've never heard of this before, but I'm fascinated by this idea. And it's true, I've noticed in the summer when I've laid down on the ground, it seems hotter than when I'm standing up. So go ahead. Tell us what sun temperature is.
Well, I'll give you this one quickly. I want to make sure Jeff has a chance because he always provides the perspective that I don't. But the observers at the Naval Observatory also had a special thermometer out in the sun. Okay. Official temperature measurements, as Jeff pointed out earlier, are taken in the shade. Well, they were smart enough to put a thermometer in the sun about a couple inches above the ground. Mm-hmm. And so, as you've noted, Matt, the temperature right down near the ground on a sunny day can be much higher. I like to tell my students the temperature at your toes is much higher than the temperature at your nose on a sunny day.
Yes.
And so we didn't use those measurements very often, but the one time we mentioned it in our talk, I remember it distinctly. We got some oohs and ahs from the audience when we presented our results, because it turns out that on the afternoon of July 3rd, while those Confederate soldiers that you mentioned, Matt, were laying out in the sun, literally laying on the ground, it turned out that the sunshine conditions in Washington and the sunshine conditions in Gettysburg were just about the same, and the actual air temperature at both places was about the same. So we kind of argued that you could extrapolate the number from Washington to Gettysburg at that particular time. And Jeff will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the sun temperature at that time was in the 130s. And we sort of presented that as a reasonable guess at what those soldiers might have felt laying in the sun on July 3rd, the afternoon.
So it's no wonder, Jeff, then, that a lot of those guys, when it was time to get on their feet, didn't. It wasn't shell fragments that kept them down. It was heat.
Yeah. Well, there was both, of course, Matt, but they expressly talked about that in their writing. They talked about the guys that were falling out with heat stroke before even time to make the charge. And, the guys across the way, except for the ones in Ziegler's Grove, the Union troops, they're out in the sun.
Yeah.
Pickets, except for maybe the 57th Virginia. They're at the point of the woods there a little bit. They've got a little shade, Heath, however you want to say it. But Trimble's guys are out in the sun. So most of these guys are out in the sun, and they're taking a beating. They're there for a while, and these guys are, been on the move for a couple of days. Pickett's division got there the evening before, but they had a hard march that day. They're already exhausted. And now they got to do this. So it plays a role, and it gives historians something else to discuss as far as how things turned out, I think.
I was always under the impression that for the most part, the 3 days of the Battle of Gettysburg were cloudy to overcast, but not like a bright, clear, sunny day, except maybe for a few hours here and there or a few spots. Am I right in that?
Well, there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, because John and I got into this, sort of getting down to the nitty gritty on July 2nd, because in the book, we talk about the 6th Corps marching in. We also talk about Law's Brigade marching in and what were those conditions like. And it's much worse than anyone's ever thought in terms of the heat index. But there were some clouds that day. And I remember distinctly saying to John, the clouds we're looking at there, is that the kind of clouds that would have really been significant enough? And Jacobs has a rating of how cloudy it was.
Right.
Numerical, I believe it is, John, right? But and he also mentions the type of cloud. So the type of cloud matters.
Yes.
And we looked at whether or not this would filter much sunlight out. And so as it turns out on July 2nd, those clouds that afternoon are letting quite a bit of that sunlight through. And remember, at that time of year, we're close to the summer solstice. So that intensity of the rays that time of year can't be much stronger. And so, again, you get into circumstances where now you got to kind of look at all this and start to discuss what happened and how might it have made a difference or not. It's up to historians to banter that about, and they'll never resolve it completely. But we've given them something they've never had before. And I'll tell you, this Naval Observatory data was a true gold mine, because no one, to our knowledge, has ever used it. And I think that's because, Matt, it's not part of the same collection that the Smithsonian records were in. It's separate, but it was in the collection I was using vis-a-vis the NOAA organization I mentioned earlier. So we were the first ones to bring this to the fore and have things like this. So it's a big difference.
And Matt, just to sort of summarize, during the 3 days of the battle, I'm looking at Jacobs's observations right now. The first day of the battle was largely cloudy.
Yeah.
The second day of the battle, the sun poked out a little bit.
Okay.
And on July 3rd, in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, Jacobs observed 40% cloud cover. So of the 3 days, the sun was out the most on the third day. But as Jeff pointed out, Jacobs also includes information about what type of cloud was up there. And it can be challenging to know exactly what the sky looked like, but this is where the soldiers talk to us. We know that on that second day, some of them started mentioning seeing the sun. And we know on the third day, more of them mentioned the sun. I think what our work brings to the fore is by throwing in the humidity component. That's important here because our results show that by modern standards, all 3 days were pretty humid in Gettysburg.
Right.
They weren't necessarily hot by temperature standards, but those days you wake up in the morning, you walk outside, and even though it's not hot, you're like, ew.
Ugh. Yeah.
You want to go back inside.
Right.
And all 3 days were of that ilk in Gettysburg. So they may not have been hot, but they were uncomfortable. And it didn't get chilly at night. I mean, Jacobs' observations for that 3-day period, the temperature really didn't go below 70 degrees at night. Now, of course, he was only measuring, he reported at 7 a.m., so it could have snuck below 70 before that, but the nights were not comfortable either.
Right.
And that's why Jeff says on that second day, it was actually much more uncomfortable than people knew before because we were able to introduce the humidity component to the story.
Yeah. And then we make the point a number of times, Matt, so people remember this. As I said, temperature is a shade measurement, right?
Yeah.
So you step out in the sun, they can quantify this. NOAA has said 10 to 15 degrees warmer in the sun. You know this, you go to the beach, who's hanging out under the umbrella, having a sarsaparilla. It's a little cooler than when you jump out and walk down to the water's edge. Of course, then it gets cooler by the water, at least where I live. But anyway, shade measurement. So just always important to remember that. If we're telling you on the third day of the battle, the temperature is 87.2, but then we looked at the high temperature, we calculated the range of the heat index, somewhere between 98 and 105. That's a shade measurement. You're going to tack on another 10 to 15 degrees on the third day of the battle that afternoon. So what are you really looking at? I mean, it's scary at some point. And of course, it's much worse than this earlier in the campaign. And we kind of, I don't want to say stumbled onto this, but as we were conducting our analysis and began to look at this heat wave that hit in June, boy, that was really something.
Yeah. So, okay, go back to that heat wave in June. Because they're on the march in June. They're all moving around and they're all,
Absolutely.
zigzagging all over the place on dusty roads. How does the heat? I noticed this, driving home. It's winter. The atmosphere is cold, like temperature wise, but color wise too. Everything is blue, right? Summer, it's pink, it's green, you got all these warm colors, and the evenings are great. All day long in the winter, it's just this cold, miserable, depressing blue, right? But I notice when there's atmosphere, some kind of mist or haze off in the mountains or whatever, that too is bluish or whatever, but the colors change and everything. How does temperature affect visibility and atmosphere, like low light, like hugging the ground type atmosphere, fog, mist, things like that, and like heat waves coming off the ground? Does that do anything for visibility for an army that's looking out a few miles across a valley or something like that? Does that distort things in any way?
That was a lot.
I know. I sometimes just spew stuff out and hope you get something out of it.
Well, as a general rule, the warmer it gets, in general, the more invisible water molecules you have in the air, water vapor.
Sure.
And that can reduce visibility as a general rule. So the really crisp days, the ones that you describe with the blue sky and you can see forever, those generally occur during the winter in the eastern part of the United States. In the West, where, if you're in the interior Western United States, that can even happen in the summer. You can see forever. But in general, in the East, the sky gets a little murkier as you get into the warmer months. And that's simply because of water vapor in the air.
Okay. So, it's not enough to make a huge difference. Okay. So where were we with we were talking with the clouds, right? I think that's where we left off before.
Yeah, a little bit of the heat wave in June. Did you want to know more about
the heat wave? That was it. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it was interesting as we began to look at the data. And Matt, as this book evolved, it grew. And it grew because initially my goal was to sort of have a Busey and Martin, if you will, of the weather during the campaign. Mm-hmm. So, where do you go for your stats on the troops? Busey and Martin. Where do you go for the weather? We didn't have that. But boy, it turned out to be a lot more because we began to fold in the stories, et cetera, et cetera. But as we examined this data each day, things started coming to the fore. And when we started looking at the heat indices for this period in June, when it happened to be that the troops are on a hard march, and there were periods, that ebbed and flowed, but these guys are on a hard march, 15, 20, 25 miles a day. And we're looking at heat indices for a few days in a row, 115, 117. And as I talked to John, and we're back and forth on this, John's, well, let me look at the historical data and see how this relates. I'll let John pick it up there.
Well, during the time of the heat wave, we're speaking about June 15th to 18th, 1863. The armies are not that far from Washington, D.C. And so we made the assumption, again, after looking at some reconstructed weather maps, that it's reasonable to look at the numbers from Washington, D.C. and extrapolate them to the vicinity of the armies. And to cut to the chase, the humidity levels combined with the heat during that 4-day period were, I looked at modern data from both National Airport in downtown Washington and Dulles, which is less affected by the urbanization of Washington, D.C.
Right.
I looked at these modern day data and just asked a simple question. How often in the last 60 years, for example, has the heat index at one of those airports reached the levels that we think it could have reached in June of 1863? And the answer came back almost never. That the heat indices we calculated or estimated in June of 1863 were very unusual. And just looking at the temperature in that 4-day period in Washington, D.C. reached at least 93 degrees 4 straight days. So you can ask a simple question. How often does the temperature reach 93 degrees 4 days in a row in modern day Washington, D.C.? Mm-hmm. The answer comes back very rarely. So no matter how you slice it, the things that the soldiers were saying about that period, and Jeff had these amazing quotes that he found of things that the soldiers were saying. I think we can look at the data and say, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
This is legit.
So you mentioned Dulles, and how much of a difference does pavement make in perceived temperature or actual temperature or whatever it is? Like, we're walking around Gettysburg, the town, and it's all pavement. And, so you get stuck out in the middle. I used to work in the middle of a parking lot. We had a shed. Our bike, you remember, Jeff, you stopped by and said hi. We had a shed and a bicycle tour company, and we were in the parking lot at the visitor center here. And on a really hot summer day, it felt like 20 degrees hotter than what the thermometer said it was, because we were getting it from above and we were getting it from below, baking out there frying on that parking lot. But how much of a difference does that make? Like, would it have made?
Well, let me just, you're absolutely right in your observations. But I want to be clear that the placement of the thermometers at these locations is done in a way to absolutely minimize that effect. So the numbers that I'm looking at, you might say, well, it's an airport. It's paved in asphalt. Well, the placement of the thermometers is done in a way to minimize that.
Sure. Okay.
So the point being the data.
I was actually asking more for like the human perception of what temperature, but that's a good point.
Your human perception is spot on. Spot on.
As I often claim that my human perception is spot on. Okay. So it is true. I mean, it's obvious. So back then though, I mean, I guess, well, like, what are we talking? 10, 15, 20 degrees difference today with the blacktop? Or do we not know? Or do we not care?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my understanding at that time is the surfaces that these soldiers would be on were mostly dirt.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
I mean, there's no asphalt.
No.
There's no
blacktop. There's no
macadamized roads, the turnpikes, but by and large, these guys, especially at that time that we're talking about.
But those would be those were light colored though, right?
Yeah.
So that'd be reflecting the sun, theoretically. Okay, it's just a curiosity. We don't have to get into that if we don't really have the whatever to do it. Okay,
it's in that'll be in the follow-up book, Gary.
The macadamized roads and how they made the heat horrible in the Civil War.
Believe me, we had to cut.
You know what? I think another way to say this, Matt, and I think Jeff would agree with me, is that when you list the factors that were affecting the way these soldiers felt, lack of water, lack of proper sleep, lack of proper nutrition, are probably way up there. The fact that they're wearing, some of them, wool, are much more important factors in terms of how the soldiers felt than the things you may be getting at here.
Yeah, I'm really not. I figured while I have you here, I might as well ask all these questions that I've wondered. I'm just trying to get it all in. But you mentioned all those other factors there, and that's the thing that amazes me, and I bring it up often when we have episodes like this where we talk about these kind of off topic but very important topics or subjects, and that's the human side of it all. And I mean, we walk around in these moisture wicking short sleeve t-shirts and shorts and everything, and we're still dying of heat, and we're sweating, and we're complaining, and we can't wait to get into the air conditioning. These guys didn't have any of that relief unless they were allowed to go skinny dipping in a creek or something like that, right? But for the most part, they've got to live with all this stuff, and they're not eating the way they should be. They're probably not hydrating as best as they should, and they probably have diarrhea, so they're dehydrating as faster than they're hydrating. All of this stuff going in there, and this is why it's 18-year-olds that fight wars. Because we couldn't handle this. Anybody over 35 wouldn't be able to handle this. Like, we'd all drop out, right? Yeah. But it's just amazing that all of these elements. Have you read An Environmental History of the Civil War? Timothy Silver and Judkin Browning?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, there you go. I found that to be fascinating. That was probably one of the first books I read that wasn't about the actual combat, that kind of opened my eyes to, like, this isn't a movie, right? This is real life. And all of the things that affect our lives today, bacteria, all that, weather, starvation, hydration, affected these guys back then. And then that, coupling that with what you guys have done now, it is making a flat, faded color picture that I have of the war in my head into this 3D, 360 degree, like modern day video game type of thing. Like it's making a world that previous history really didn't give us. So do you want to comment on the wonderful job that you're doing here with that?
Well, no, I think that's nice of you to say, and a great way to put it. I hadn't heard it put that way, actually, Matt. But I mean, I give the credit to certainly John for the science piece of it, and to the soldiers. And these quotes are just a huge gift to all of us as historians, because they're so rich in their commentary and their descriptions of it. And they really give it the color. I mean, I don't want to get into reading a bunch of them here, but I would just tell anybody who buys this book, I tried to blend together as many of those as I could with what we wrote. The way the book's organized, will give you the status of what's going on with the troops at that time, a little background on what's happening on the weather, and it's broken down week by week. And then we'll talk about the primary sources we're applying to any particular section. And then we get into some focus pieces on, what's going on right now of particular interest where the weather's playing a role. And that's where we unfold these quotes. And John blends some in, I blend them in, and then we even have certain stories in there, like the Medal of Honor that was awarded to a soldier for rescuing, if you will, one of his compatriots in the Orange Blossoms, 124th New York. He's left behind to take care of the officer who had fallen out with heat stroke. And they're surrounded by some Confederate scouts, if you will. Most of the main army's moving on, but there's a threat to these guys, and it's not looking good. And that's when the officer tells the soldier, Nathan Mullikallick, he says, "Get out of here. This isn't your fight. You don't have to stay." And he says, "No." He says, "This is my job. I was sent here to stay with you and help you." And he says, "We may go to prison. We may be killed, but I'm not leaving." And I mean, that's the real deal. And it all happened because of the weather. Yeah. Because the guys are falling out in droves. Matt, if you look at the medical surgical history of the War of the Rebellion, at that period of time, June of 1863, of all the reported cases of sunstroke, the Army of the Potomac reports 80% of them. This is every army in existence for the Union. 80% of the cases of sunstroke are reported by the Army of the Potomac. They represent roughly 40% of those armies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So almost
that tells
half.
you what they were doing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's something. It's kind of a showstopper.
You mentioned you mentioned quotes. Give me a couple of them, though, just to give people an idea of, you got any favorites that kind of stand out that you can rattle off real quick?
Gosh, yeah. Got favorites that probably didn't make the book either, but I'll give you a couple here, man.
Okay.
Let's see here. There's that was Lieutenant Lewis Wisner, by the way, with Nathan Mullikallick. Let's see. One soldier put the situation in perspective regarding those who lost their lives due to the lengthy forced marches in the brutally hot weather. In reflecting on the march of June 15th, Sergeant James A. Wright of the 1st Minnesota Infantry wrote, "It was one of the most heartbreaking marches of our experience, and many men wilted in the scorching heat and dust like mown grass. There were many prostrations, men staggering from the ranks and falling as if shot. There were a number of cases of fatal sunstroke and some dying almost as quickly as if struck by a bullet in a vital part."
God.
James Wright left us some amazing quotes. And, the Confederates do as well. See if I can find something else for you here.
That's just so hard to imagine. When you juxtapose that description to the movie, for example, Gettysburg, and, pickets arriving on the field, the Longstreets arriving on the field or whatever, and there's troops marching in the background, and everybody's just, straight backed, and nobody looks tired, nobody's drenched in sweat, it's just, everything is perfect as the way it's supposed to be, and everybody's happy and cheerful, and hello, General, and, but when you read that, it just sounds like tragedy and misery around every corner. There is just, and of course they had to have found, moments of, jovial moments and frivolous moments and things like that. You've got to, of course.
Sure.
But it's they find those moments amidst that stuff. People just dropping out as if they were shot. You know, I mean, like, and it's from the heat.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. It's so hard to imagine that. It's just such a horrible thing. John, you're a science guy, and this is what I love about the way things are being done today. You got a history guy, you got a science guy. They come together to do this book, blending the two in. Did you have an interest in the Civil War prior to Jeff getting in touch with you?
Well, when I was at the Weather Channel, I did a little feature every day about some aspect of the weather that I found interesting, and that was the first time I did anything that had to do with the overlap of weather and the battle. I mean, my father had taken me to Gettysburg. He was a high school history teacher when I was 9. I had not been back to Gettysburg since then. But then when I moved back to Pennsylvania, Gettysburg's kind of in my backyard. I'm working for Penn State.
Right.
And so when Jeff called, I mean, I had a passing interest in what was happening in Gettysburg. I didn't know it would take us on this journey. I'm sure glad that it did. But it didn't just come out of the blue. I had been interested in the history of weather. As Jeff alluded to earlier, I had co-written a book called the Philadelphia Area Weather Book with a Philadelphia television meteorologist about 25 years ago. And I was working at the Franklin Institute Science Museum at the time. And long story short, the Franklin Institute has a long history of being involved in the weather. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Philadelphia was kind of the hotbed of American meteorology for the first half of the 19th century. And so I was kind of into the historical part of it. And I knew that there was a weather observer in Gettysburg in Adams County, just like there was a weather observer in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and a weather observer in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. So I was working on the periphery of Gettysburg, but nothing like Jeff's focus.
So you were kind of interested in just the history of weather. Would that be fair?
Yes, that would be fair. And the overlap of weather with historical events.
Okay. That's so interesting. I never would have thought of that until you guys.
I mean, I've done pieces for Pennsylvania Public Television on the weather of the original Independence Day, the weather in the Challenger disaster, the weather in the Super Bowl. You know, you name an important historical event, I've probably done a feature for Pennsylvania Public Television on that intersection. That really fascinates me.
That's so cool. I love that is something that fascinates you. Because if it didn't fascinate you, and I'm sure other scientists such as yourself, none of us would know anything about it, right? It has to fascinate somebody to make them start digging.
Well, and you know, the overlap of weather with important history such as D-Day is a well-known story. Yeah. I wasn't the first to tell it, but it's a fascinating story as just one example of how, when the war was over and I'm probably going to botch this quote, but Eisenhower is on record as saying that D-Day succeeded because we had better meteorologists than the Germans did.
Right.
Yeah.
And things like that really bring it home.
Stagg, wasn't it? Stagg, was that his name? Stagg. I think he's the guy that's reporting to Ike, and he's telling him it's going to clear up tomorrow, and it's like 4 a.m, and wherever Ike is, the windows are rattling, it's pouring down rain.
It's well known that D-Day was postponed a day because of the weather.
Because of the weather, sure.
It's huge.
So, in the time of the Civil War, though, they weren't trying to predict weather, or were they? By studying the weather, what was their purpose? Just to get patterns, or what?
Well, there was really no prediction going on. There was no National Weather Service. So to my knowledge, the state of weather prediction at that time was essentially zero. There was some knowledge, reading the clouds, a ring around the sun or moon means rain or snow is coming soon. There were some folklore.
Yeah.
There were rudimentary attempts, even as early as the 1830s, to try to draw weather maps by piecing together just the sparse data that you had. But once the Civil War intervened, there was none of that going on. No one was drawing weather maps. But weather observers, we are a dedicated bunch, Matt. And once you get it in your blood that I've been doing this for a couple years, and I imagine Jacobs was like that. He's a college professor. He loves the environment. He's been observing weather for many years. Heck, I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
And I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And somewhere down the line, somebody's going to find this data useful.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically for the record, right? Like, because they're not like predicting isn't a thing. Somebody has a question here, and this is something I think we should get back to, because there's two things I want to get to, but let's start with humidity. First thing we want to know is, this is from Cheatham Hill. They ask, what are their thoughts, meaning yours, on the humidity level versus actual temperature? Obviously no heat index then, but did it add to it? May have mentioned it already, so apologies if so. You kind of did mention it, but you didn't go into it here like you did obviously in the book and in the Sacred Trust talk that I watched. So can you go into that a little bit? You mentioned that it wasn't recorded here in Gettysburg, but it was recorded elsewhere. And then I think I took us on a tangent and we never got back.
Well, with respect to the battle, we used humidity data measured in Harrisburg, 35 miles up the road, extrapolated that data to Gettysburg with the justification that the weather regime that was in place in the mid-Atlantic during the 3 days of the battle would have made the feel-like temperature in Harrisburg pretty much the same as that in Gettysburg. Okay. I think the way we write it in the book is that it would have felt the same had the battle been fought in Harrisburg as it was fought in Gettysburg. And we make a reasonable argument based on the reconstruction maps that those two localities, only 35 miles apart, were in the same weather pattern.
Yeah, and I believe that, because I've been here and then had to jump up to Harrisburg, and there was no damn difference. But I have been, one time we went to Antietam, okay, and it was 70 degrees. No, sorry. It was 70 degrees when we left Gettysburg. Went over the mountains down to Antietam. Next thing you know, it's 40 degrees and it snowed. And then we came back over the mountains through the snow, and we come down the mountain and it's 70 degrees again here. It was like April or March or something like that.
Exactly. And had the battle been fought in other months where the weather is more changeable over short distances, I think Jeff and I would have had a much more difficult time with some of the assumptions that we made.
Yeah.
But in the middle of summer, early July, it's not at all unusual, as you said, Matt. You drive from Gettysburg to Harrisburg, you get out of the car, it feels the same.
Yeah.
And I think we were able to establish, and of course, rain can make a difference too. If it rained in Harrisburg and didn't rain in Gettysburg, that can make a difference. But that wasn't happening on those first 3 days of July.
Well, so that's the next question that I was going to get to, was one of the people asked the rains that came on the 4th and 5th. How did that affect anything? Did it cool everything down, or did it add to the humidity?
It cooled everything down.
Yeah. But you're touching on something there that hopefully who's ever asking on that, and maybe some other folks as well, are going to be curious about. And I always was, with the rainfall that Jacobs recorded, seemed to not jive, if you will, with Imboden's account of the torrential rains as they went through the mountains on the retreat. What would you have expected the rain to have been to create the situation on the Potomac where they couldn't cross when they ultimately they're stuck there for nearly a week, right?
Right.
So, and interesting, talking about these different observers, we found there was a Smithsonian observer of all places just outside of Hagerstown in Leidesburg, and got all excited. And turned out he was one that no longer reported at the time of the battle. So there we were, that close. Still looking for his records, though, because we have evidence that he was still keeping on his own weather data. We have a newspaper article that explains that he is comparing the precip in 1863 with 62. How could he do that if
he
he
didn't
wasn't still
yeah,
keeping track.
sure.
So I checked every possible source and then some, but we have not located those. Would love to find them. There was a weather observer in Chambersburg. So these are over on the other side of the mountain.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So
It was snowing over
that
there.
would have been great. Neither one of us gave us what we needed. So we had to get into some, what John and I like to say, and it really is reverse engineering, to look at what likely happened. The rainfall's a different animal, and John did a great job of drumming this home with me. We could look at the temperature things, but to say what the rainfall was in Gettysburg, what it was on the other side of the mountains, and there could be great differences, could not be. It's extremely variable, and we got our arms around it, though, I think in a unique way, to give people a better feel for what the circumstances were, at least to some point, to create that situation on the river that bottled Lee up for a while and proved to be kind of a harrowing circumstance. Right, John?
Yeah, and I mean, Matt, you probably have the experience of, I remember when I used to play softball. Softball field's 10 miles from my house. It's July. It never rains at my house, but the game is canceled. Why is the game canceled?
Yes.
Because there was a thunderstorm at the field and it's a quagmire, right?
Sure.
So you know how the precipitation can work during the summer.
Yeah.
We meteorologists say that summertime precipitation is more convective, which simply means here, there, but not everywhere.
Right.
It's more thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And so we have some numbers about how much rain fell during the retreat. We have a number from Gettysburg, as Jeff pointed out. We have some numbers from Harrisburg, which suggest that it rained a heck of a lot more than it did in Gettysburg. And so, but we don't know how much it rained south and west of Gettysburg as Lee's army retreated toward Hagerstown to try to cross. So what we did is as Jeff said, we reversed engineered it. We sort of have an idea of the level of the river that prevented Lee from crossing. So we have some idea of what the river level was in that first and second week of July 1863 after all the rain fell.
First-hand accounts. So.
Right. So we asked the question, let's look at some modern day times during the summer when the river rose to a level comparable to what we think it was in July of 1863 that prevented Lee from crossing. And if we can find those comparables, let's just ask, well, how much rain did it take in the river basin that feeds the Potomac to produce these modern day similar river crests? So we did that. And I found 3 proxies, 3 comparables. And it turns out that a reasonable guess for how much rain it takes in the basin that feeds the Potomac at Hagerstown is between 3 and 4 inches. You were able to create modern day rises on the river comparable to what happened in July. Okay. And so that's what we wrote, that this is, as far as we know, the first scientifically sound guess at how much rain would have had to fall to make the river do what it did.
And the I guess the epilogue to that too, Matt, is that again we started looking at this and going, okay, this is early to mid-July 1863, that much rainfall creating these conditions on the Potomac. I go back to John. John, how often has this happened? Can we take a look at some historical data? Was this unusual? Because we got the unusual heat wave. We got it pretty darn bad, especially on July 2nd and 3rd in Gettysburg. So the weather gods are playing some tricks on things here. How about with this rainfall? What did we find, John?
Well, it turns out that we do have modern day river level data from Hagerstown. Mm-hmm. And at least in the last 30 years.
Yeah, right at Williamsport too, right, John?
At Williamsport, where they crossed. It turns out in the last 30 years, the river level at Williamsport had never come close to rising as high in July in the last 30 years as it did in that July. Okay. So it at least based on modern record keeping, it's pretty unusual for the river to be that high in the month of July at Williamsport.
Well, okay. So what, 2 questions. Let me start with this one. So the weather patterns, Jeff, you being a guide out here, to John's point about, it's not raining at my house, but softball was canceled because the field's a quagmire. You, I'm sure, have been out on a tour on the battlefield, say at Little Round Top, and you see this black, deep purple wall of cloud coming over the mountains, and it misses you entirely, but it shits on the town, right? And it just goes up north of town and everything like that, and other places, right? You could be anywhere. You could be in town, and you can see the like we had that tornado that tore down the trees on Big Round Top a few years back, right? And I was in town taking a nap and missed the whole damn thing. I was so pissed because I was out in the sun the whole time. I'm like, well, we don't have anything to do till 5, so let me go take a little afternoon nap and get out of the heat. And then I missed the excitement of the whole day. Yeah. Anyway, point is, so yeah, you're right. In the summertime, they're sporadic and you can watch them while getting a tan, right? Winter, it's just a blanket of hell over you, right? And if it's snow or rain, it's fallen over the whole region. But so when you're trying to figure out where rain fell way back then, right? And you don't have reports everywhere. Can you, I'm assuming in 160 years, the weather patterns haven't changed, right? Like working outside, doing the bike tours for all those years, I learned like in the summertime, our weather comes from like the west and the southwest, basically. And yeah. But winter, it's different. And I'm not out in the winter. I'm avoiding it. So I don't really give a shit what it is in the winter time, where it comes from in the winter. But like this recent thing seems to have come from the north, the stuff that we're in now. So, do they change in 160 years that drastically or no?
The general weather patterns that you just described, the short answer is no.
Okay. So can you go back then and go, okay, well, if the weather comes from this, and can you trace like where they are saying they got rain and then but then I guess the question is it a small pocket of rain or is it like a blanket of rain over the whole region?
Well, the way the data that we have from Harrisburg, Washington, Gettysburg, Frederick, shows us during the retreat, the rain amounts varied considerably.
Okay.
And which is not unusual in the summer.
Right.
I mean, the reconstruction system that I referenced earlier that allows us to draw weather maps doesn't give us the specifics of exactly where it rained. But what it gives us is the big picture. Like anyone who's ever watched a weather map knows we meteorologists are fascinated with areas of high pressure and low pressure,
right,
and warm fronts and cold fronts. These are terms that I think many people are familiar with.
And bomb cyclones.
And that's a difference. Yeah. But this reconstruction system kind of gives us the gross characteristics. And in a nutshell, it suggests that during the retreat, well, and let me just back up 1 second. Cold fronts are things that we meteorologists are fascinated with. They're blue lines on weather maps. And when they come through, they often bring rain or snow, and then it turns colder behind them. During the summer, these cold fronts come into Pennsylvania, and maybe it chills down a little bit up in Erie or Detroit or Buffalo, but then that cold air gets to the Mason-Dixon line and it kind of stalls. And so when that happens, there can be corridors where precipitation is favored for many days. And the way the weather maps make it look is that one of these cold fronts kind of stalled along the Mason-Dixon line, and that allowed thunderstorms to kind of roll along it, and it rains, then it stops, then it rains again, and then it stops. And that's the way the weather pattern post-battle kind of looks in the vicinity of where the armies were. We don't have the details, the hour-by-hour details, but we kind of have the gross features.
Gotcha. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Jeff.
And then we have the quotes, of course, we come right back to.
That's right.
These guys are telling you, they're giving you the ground truth as much as you can trust them, and there are a lot of them giving it to you.
It rained on the 4th and the 5th didn't rain as much on the 6th and the 7th.
Yeah.
Then it rained a heck of a lot on the 8th. Everybody complained about the 8th. And then the rains kind of shut off. The river went down. You wait a few days, and what happens? Lee
You
crosses.
cross.
Yeah. And on his heels, more rain.
Well, so give us a couple of quotes about rain during the retreat, because for the people that haven't read much about the retreat or whatever, it is just so hard to imagine. Now you gotta mix into this. You got your wounded in the wagon train there, and all this misery. And you're the Confederates. You're trying to get away. You don't want to get caught. And you're the Union. You're after them. So you're chasing after these guys in this rain. It's not easy to go. I go up through Monterey Pass to go to Walmart nowadays since we moved out that way. And it's paved, but when it's raining or snowing, it ain't easy, even when it's paved and you got plows and everything. So these guys don't have paved roads.
Shout out to those guys in that museum out there, by the way. That's a nice jewel out there.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
Yep.
I'm looking for Embod's quote. I mean, that's the classic.
Yes.
That's just, but I want to give you a couple, because I think everybody's, they got on the cross and it wasn't too bad. But let me switch glasses here. Make sure I can read this thing. So we kind of end the book with some quotes. We figured that was fitting. And by the way, we don't get a chance to talk about this. I mean, one of the things we're, I guess, I hate to say proud of, but most excited to bring to people are some of the images in the book, Matt. There's an image of the bridge crossing at Williamsport, the C&O Canal. And there's been some debate over whether that's Falling Waters or whether it's Williamsport. We believe Williamsport, and we kind of make a case for that there with some other picture. We got drawings from all the guys that, Forbes and Wode, and there's a lot of great imagery in this book. And of course, John Heiser did our maps. Dale Gallen created some original drawings for us. So, and we've got a color section there with John's amazing weather maps, etc. So anyway, let me give you a couple of these quotes as they're getting ready to cross over the river here.
And while you're looking there, the next thing I'm going to ask you about, 'cause somebody in the audience said it would be great to see a book about how the weather affected the civilians. Do you have any quotes from civilians about the weather? Because they're hunkered down in their basement.
Yeah. So there's a write-up in one of our focus pieces in the book, People's Stories Matters to Remember. That's especially poignant to me because it stopped me in my tracks. I'm gobbling up these quotes left and right, man. Just, and I found out that there was a guy who had a winery, had a farm, had a winery down at Front Royal. And he keeps weather records because farmers, weather's everything.
Yeah.
Except there's one thing more important, your family. And he's got a son in the 7th Virginia Cavalry. And so you want to talk about a quote. The day, bright and warm, but to me and my family, one of gloom and darkness. And now I'm beginning to wonder, right? What's going on here? About 1:00 p.m., I received a note from my brother William informing me that my dear, precious boy, Walter, had been wounded in the cavalry fight at Upperville on yesterday. I immediately got on my horse and started in that direction by way of Barry's Ferry. Very soon, the fatal truth was communicated to me, first by wounded soldiers returning, and a few miles further on in letters from cousins, Horace and Isaac. My firstborn son, my pride, had fallen by a shot fired from the enemy while making a charge for the protection of Chew's battery. So it wasn't weather that caused his death, but this guy was one of our civilian weather observers. And the last thing I expected to find was that comment.
Right. He throws that detail in.
Walter Buck and Dad is Marcus. And there's a great little quote we put in here. A Greek historian, in peace, sons bury their fathers. In war, fathers bury their sons.
Ugh.
And it's all too true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So crossing the river. Let us cross over the river, huh? All right. Most people know Edward Porter Alexander. He looked pretty good in the movie too, by the way.
Yeah.
That's Another story. Let's see. But oh, it was another awful night. I was now back with my battalion, and we were marching all night in awful roads and mud and dark and hard rain. And though we had only 3 miles to go, we were some distance from the bridge at sunrise. The rain was now over, and the sun rose clear. The whole night had been spent in groping and pulling through the mud, a few feet at a time, and then waiting for the vehicle in front of you to move again. And men would go to sleep on their horses or leaning in fence corners or standing in the mud. Private Lewis Leon, 53rd North Carolina Infantry. The river was up to my chin and very swift. We crossed in fours for protection, as otherwise we could not have crossed. Our cartridge boxes we carried around our necks to keep the powder dry. On the south bank, tar was poured so that we would not slip back in the river, as the mud was very slick. Jay Eagle of our company was stuck until some of the boys pulled him out. We went 6 miles further, and I honestly believe more of us were asleep on the night's march than awake. Sam Pickens. This guy provides some unbelievable quotes. We went to a ford several hundred yards higher up the river than where we crossed before. So if you go down to Williamsport and go down and look at the river, look up to the right. There's a little island there, and it's up by that. Going up to the aqueduct through the water that smelt very offensively. As soon as we got near the river, we knew the men were waiting by yelling and howling that we heard. The Potomac, being swollen, was very wide and was over waist deep. We waded 2 by 2 by side, holding on to each other in order to resist the current better and be more steady. Our clothes, blankets, and haversacks all got wet, which increased our load and made it very disagreeable marching after crossing. The banks were muddy on the side, so steep and slippery that it was difficult to scuffle up. We were very tired and confidently expected to stop directly after getting over the river, but on we went without stopping. There's just a couple of them there, Matt.
That's just so hard to imagine these guys doing that stuff. John, do you have any quotes that you like? I saw you were looking too. I don't want to.
Oh, John has a book here in front of me. He does, because in parts that John wrote here, he wrote great ones.
No, I love everything Jeff has chosen, and I think he's captured. I mean, we've shown some quotes from the days of the battle, from that heat wave in June, and from the crossing of the Potomac there on July 13th. So, and I think those are really the best in terms of the expressing the extremes that these soldiers had to deal with during this 6-week campaign.
Yeah. Okay, I have an idea that I want to do with you guys. And actually, I have this idea. It's based on an idea somebody put in the comments here. We're going to do a video, okay? You got to be here, though. And we're going to get a green screen. And we're going to use these maps that you have that are recreating the weather of the time. And we're going to do a little video that is giving the weather as if it's July 1st, July 2nd, and July 3rd. Okay? And you can sit there and you can point and everything. And I think people would get a kick out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have plenty of experience in the green screen.
I know. I know. That's why I think it would be great to do. That would be fun.
Recreate Professor Jacobs and his sidekick, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get you like an old 19th century civilian's garb that you could wear there, and
if you have the clothing, I'll put it on.
There you go. All right.
You sound like me. I'm talking to Bo Brinkman, right? And I'm like, if I'm going to be in a movie, I don't want to be just any old extra. You got to make me Professor Jacobs, and he would have been around some of these major.
Sure.
David McConaughey.
Did you get the part?
No.
Oh, what a shame.
The script was already full. There wasn't room to add in. But, it's going to be a great movie.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. I mean, I'm a featured extra in it, so obviously, and it's in the finale, so obviously it's going to really it's going to pull the movie together once you see me sitting there in the church.
Right. Does the camera sort of zoom over to you, right?
It does. It starts on me, and then it pans down the no, it's like a tracking shot going down the what do you call it? The front pew of the church.
Yeah.
And the actors are behind us, so they're in focus. So we're a little blurred, but you're going to recognize handsomeness, whether it's blurred or not, you know? All right, let me go through here. Because some of the people had some good questions. I incorporated most of them into these, but here, a lot of people very interested in this subject. One person said something to the effect of, it goes to show you what a bunch of nerds we are, that we find this to be very interesting. But it is very interesting. Let's see here. Think this is moving up on my to read soon book list rather fast. So somebody's bumping it up on his list. A couple of other people have already read it and they love the book.
Thank you.
I asked you that one there. Valerie says she loves the weather maps in the back of the book. One guy here, Peter, he says, I remember being overseas and being up for 36 hours straight in 140-degree weather and peeing syrup. Not good.
Yeah, no.
That's that dehydration there.
Yeah.
God damn. That sucks. Yeah, just a lot of positive comments in here. Everybody really loves the book. They're excited to read the book. Oh, I wanted to ask this too, and Peter asked this one as well. Going back to the records, we were talking about predicting the weather, right? Farmer's Almanac. What was the deal with that? I mean, was that like the closest thing? Did these reports get into that? And you know, what the hell is it? I mean, I know what it is, but where does it come from? And is it reliable?
Well, I have no idea whether these reports would have been in the almanac. The Farmer's Almanac is shrouded in mystery. Let me just say that on the television show that I currently am on, that Penn State produces, a couple decades ago, we did a feature on evaluating the weather forecast in the Farmer's Almanac, and they're not very good.
Okay. Were they the best thing going?
Let me give it to you another way.
Go ahead.
The three of us could get together over pizza and beer tonight, and with the goal of let's produce a weather forecast for every day for the remainder of 2026 for Gettysburg.
Okay.
And put together our experiences, our life experiences. We'll throw in a snowstorm here or there and a cold snap. And given that climate change, global warming is real, that things are a little warmer now than they were back then, we're gonna make it a hot summer, okay? Because that usually happens. Sure. It's gonna be humid in July in Gettysburg. We'll throw in some thunderstorms here and there. We'll come up with a reasonable scenario for the rest of 2026. Putting our three collective minds together, we could do a great job, right?
Sure.
There's really no science involved there.
Right.
It's just a
anecdotal
collective experience of three individuals.
Yeah.
Are we going to be right on some days?
Sure.
Darn right we are.
Yeah.
Are we going to be wrong on some days? Darn right we are. That's pretty much what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. And that's basically like my experience with the bike tours. Like I was really good at telling you if we were going to get rain or not. You know, customers would call and they'd be like, the forecast is calling for rain. And I would literally go outside and I'd look to the west and I go, when are they saying it's going to rain? And they're like, in an hour. And I go, no, not an hour, probably this afternoon. And I was usually right.
But there's a difference. You're making a forecast, a short range forecast, based on lots and lots of experience of looking up at the sky where you are.
Yeah.
The Farmer's Almanac forecasts, they put that on paper a year in advance.
Mm-hmm. Based on last year, right?
Well, based on whatever, based on
many years.
Coming up with a reasonable scenario. So what you're doing is different because yours is a short range forecast that's based on kind of looking up at the sky.
Observation,
and the Farmer's Almanac forecast, that is printed a year in advance.
And is that for the whole country or is that?
Yeah, it's for the whole country.
Is it broken? I've never looked through one. Is it like broken up by region or?
Yeah, it's broken up by regions and usually by weeks, like the week of June, this to that will be this. So there's no way to make weather forecasts that far in advance.
No.
With any degree of accuracy that's anything better than
Listener had a question about drought. I mean, obviously we know it was raining after the battle. We had that heat wave before the battle in June. Did we get any rain in June?
Yeah, there's rain in there. In fact, one of the great quotes, and it's too long to read, Sergeant Wright again. I think it's on page 116 in the book. He's talking about the rain when they're crossing at Edwards Ferry. And that quote is fantastic. And he talks about, he compares it to Washington crossing the Delaware. The weather's different, right? But I mean, it's torrential rain they're crossing. It's as miserable as can be. And he talks about if there was some artist that could capture this, it would really be something. And of course, nobody did. I'm still leaning on Dale, but you need a commission to get these things done. But
a line of thunderstorms ended the heat wave.
yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And they had hail.
Late in the day on June 18th, we know that a line of thunderstorms, pretty ferocious thunderstorms, the weather observer at the Naval Observatory said that hail accompanied the thunderstorms, right? And we've all been in those situations, right? During the summer, like it's been hot and humid and you're just like, please, I could use some relief. And then a thunderstorm rolls in and the next day it's cooler and less humid and you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long will it last?
Yeah.
But it was funny because the soldiers were talking about that hail. And then, of course, we got the observatory report and there it is. It's like, oh, it's nice when it dovetails.
So how bad was that heat wave? What were the high temperatures then?
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, in Washington, D.C., during that 4-day period in June, the high temperature exceeded 93 degrees on 4 consecutive days.
That's right.
And and I think one of the days, I don't have the numbers in front of me, it got up to 98. So, and that kind of heat, a 4-day stretch in DC in June is not all that common, even in modern day times, when we know that the climate is a little warmer than it was in the 1860s. So this was a significant heat wave in the middle of June.
So, and that's the shade temperature, right?
Yeah,
that you're talking there. So that's not including the heat index, which had to be over 100 degrees.
Heat index during the high heat index, I think, was 117, 118, something like that during that heat wave.
God.
That's our estimate.
That's shade.
That's in the shade.
So the rains come and break that heat wave. So God, could you imagine the battle being fought in that?
How about that?
You'd have like 60% of them would be having heat stroke.
This is probably a good time to interject. In one of the appendices in the book, we attempt to, as best we can, using all the available data sources, tell you what the weather was like each day of the Gettysburg campaign in the vicinity of where the soldiers were. So we have that for all 42 days, I believe it is, from June 3rd to July 14th, maybe, where we try to give you a sense of, with a range of temperatures, recognizing that the armies were not all in the same place. And we think we know that's the first time that anyone has attempted to do this, to sort of paint the picture using the kinds of terminology we use on television today: partly cloudy, mostly sunny, thunderstorms, etc. We put that together in the appendix.
Okay.
Yeah, June 17th, 95 to 100 degrees, and heat index anywhere between 114 and 119. Hazy sun, very hot, oppressive. Yeah, June 18th is when the thunderstorms rolled in. So by the 19th, the temperature is 80 to 85 degrees, and was cloudy, and no measurable heat index, I guess, that day. Max heat index 84 to 89.
How about wind? Was it windy or not so windy? It never really gets windy around here in the summer.
I think it's measured. It's measured at the observatory.
No, I know it's measured, but what was it during the battle?
Well, if when I was compiling that appendix, if I thought wind was a significant factor, I would have put it in that appendix.
Okay.
I don't think wind. There were some days. I mean, I could just pick up the book and look. There were some days when wind was mentioned quite frequently.
Soldiers mentioned wind sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, John, I'm sorry, Jeff, in the summertime, there's some days you're dying for a breeze, right?
Yeah, just give me a little bit.
It's like the doldrums around here. Like it's yeah. But then in the winter, you go out on the battlefield and it cuts right through you. It's constant.
I've been on Little Round Top in dead of winter when the wind was blowing like 50, 60 miles an hour and the temperature was like 10 degrees.
Yeah.
I was on there for about 5 seconds.
Yeah, your eyes start watering and you got like chunks of ice right under your eyelids because it can't even get down your cheek before it freezes. Right. It's so bad. Go ahead, John.
I mean, lest we give the impression that the weather was extreme the whole time. I mean, June 7th, June 8th, the armies are still largely near Fredericksburg. Breezy, pleasant, chilly morning, comfortable. So there were some nights when the temperature dropped into the 40s early in June. And you know, that does happen even in modern times. You'll have some days in early June, for example, where it's quite pleasant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
now I'm trying to think of like the cannonade, for example, all that smoke. Somebody points out in the comments, the Bliss farm is still burning, smoldering, right? So you got all this smoke, cannons, the house, the farm buildings burning, the wood, whatever. And it's not, as I understand it, wasn't a very particularly windy day. No. And so it's just hanging there.
Yeah.
Like, God, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's summer in Gettysburg. Like, there's just no wind when you really need it. It's not going to clear smoke out of your lungs. It's not going to cool you off. It's just miserable.
Part of your color palette, that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's right. I'll take that over what we're sitting through right now any day.
Amen.
Yeah, this is horrendous.
Yeah.
Guys, people can get the books just about anywhere. One of the places is For the Historian here in Gettysburg, which you've mentioned, or if you mention Addressing Gettysburg, you get a 20% discount. And but you can get it anywhere. Amazon, the Visitor Center, the Heritage Center, all over the place, right?
History Press.
What's that?
History Press.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Do you have any book signings in Gettysburg or any trips to Gettysburg planned in 2026?
Yes, a couple actually. We're going to be up there a few times. We're tentatively scheduled to do something with the Seminary Ridge Museum folks.
Good.
And we're also going to be there for a roundtable in May. And there may be some book signings going on. We got to look at each other's schedules and see what we can do while we're in town in any of the instances where we're there. And goodness knows if one of the major weather groups out there decides they want to do something on their books and wants us around Gettysburg during the summer with all the 250th thing going on of the nation's history. There's talk of such things. Who knows? We could be back for something like that. Well, got to come for the green screen.
I was going to say, when you know that you're coming, give me enough advance notice so that we can pull that together. I mean, we'd have to animate those maps, but we can figure that out. I know enough people. We can figure that out. That would be fun to do, and I think that would be really cool. People would get a kick out of that, seeing that weather like that. All right. This is an interesting question, and then we're going to let you guys go. Cheatham Hill again says, the question we all want to know, does the sulfur from the powder actually impact the weather in the immediate? I don't understand that question. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that the idea here is that some experimentation does go on to deposit particles into clouds at high altitudes to make them more apt to produce precipitation. And so the question probably deals with the idea that all this was going on down near the ground, and there were all these extra particles being added to the air. And the problem here is that where the particles are isn't where the clouds form. And the precipitation forms at very high altitudes. So the addition of all this smoke and sulfur and particles to the low-level air, all that really does is makes it hard to breathe.
Yeah, okay.
Down here near the ground, but it won't create weather on its own.
Got it.
Just high enough up, like the with the fires coming out of Canada a couple years ago. I was
Yes.
on the battlefield, and
You could
that was
taste it.
filtering some sunlight. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
high enough up.
Wildfires on a massive scale can produce plenty of particles that rise high into the sky and then get blown into the United States. And that's what happened, as Jeff is referencing. And that can clearly have an impact on visibility.
Yeah. I remember there's a few times that's happened with California or Canadian wildfires. And I remember being able to look at the sun directly when it was lower in the sky, like towards sunset, late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I said to my friend, I'm like, dude, I'm staring right at the sun right now. And he
Right at the
goes,
sun.
oh yeah, what the hell is that about? And then we realized I've had this like weird film on my tongue all day because I'm eating smoke from, then it was California. That was a few years ago. All right. Well, listen, guys, I love this, and I could probably talk about this with you for another 4 hours because this is such a fascinating topic. But we're all going to get the book. That's what we're going to do, ladies. I told you can get your disc. Appreciate that. And
Thank you for hosting us. Thanks to your viewers for their interest.
Really.
they are
Appreciate
very
it.
interested in this. They're very interested in this. I'm like, another great interview. Well, that's more about me. Great interview. Again, that's about me again.
Well, you're an extra in the movie.
So thankful you did this. Okay, so they're all. Thanks, Jeff and John. Fantastic work, and thank you both for your dedication to share your passion with the Gettys nerds. Trademark. Thank you guys very much.
welcome.
I really enjoyed this. Good luck to you with the book, and we'll see you when you come to town. And that's it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, whatever you're doing. And we hope you enjoyed the interview. We hope you get the book and you learn something more about the Battle of Gettysburg via this work. Until next time, it'll be the meantime. Bye-bye. All right. We're done. That's my new sign off there. Until next time, it'll be the meantime. I don't know. I just made that up.
You got to have a tagline like that, Matt. You know?
Yeah, well, it worked for Chevy Chase, so, you know.
There you go.
Hey, I grew up in D.C. There were a couple of DJs in there for years, and they had their thing. My time is up, but thank you for yours. And
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, that's
Joy
nice.
Boys of Radio.
That's very polite, though. My time is up, but thank you for yours. I like that.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Who
That's
was
kinda
that
nice.
that did that?
Oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. I wanted to say Gil Martin, but that's not right. Lynn Hathaway.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
maybe
don't know
Lynn
those
Hathaway,
names.
and the other guy's name was Gil Martin, Dave Gil Martin, I think. You look him
Okay.
up.
Some
When you see Bo, you say Bo. The only thing missing in this movie is Professor Jacobs, and I knew the guy that played.
You know, when the last movie came out, he brought it over to my house and we watched it. And when he does, I'm going to make him do that again this year. And at the end, I'll go, you know, all right, not bad, but no Professor Jacobs. I mean, how can you not have that?
How can you not have that, Bo?
Valerie says, this was a wonderful episode. I enjoyed this. I loved this book last summer. This makes me want to reread it.
Oh,
There you
Wow.
go. And then
look
somebody-
at all those pictures, drawings, all that stuff. The book within the book, the images.
Yeah.
somebody rereads the book, we get credit for it twice.
Oh yeah.
Is that how that works? What was it? Somebody else said something, and it's true. Well, they said that when we do what is it? Oh, Matt, your interviews have sold a lot of books, at least to me. I'm going to order this one. So yeah, but it's true. I hear from For the Historian a lot. They always know when we have had somebody on the show because they get a whole bunch of people wanting the book.
Nice.
And I go, well, they asked for a discount, right? So it's pretty easy to track. And he goes, no, not everybody does. But I find out later that, you know, like they really don't much, which is nice. You know, people, you know, they love this stuff and they appreciate the work everybody does. And in their own way, they support it. Some take advantage of discounts. Others don't because they want everybody to get, you know, well, I mean, you guys still get your full amount, but
well, we appreciate that everybody's curious about this. It's our passion, and we're happy, you know, when we're there to sign. And if you need somebody that really needs a signed book, Matt, I'm in town a few times during the season working. I can get with John. We'll get you an autographed copy with both of us. And you know, when we were there for the Sacred Trust, we had Greg Forbes, who wrote our afterword, and Carol Reardon, who wrote the forward. they were signing with us. So some
Yeah.
people got out of there with 4 signatures.
Wow.
And I haven't seen those on eBay yet, but I'm sure they're probably floating around out there.
And I do believe you asked me to write a blurb for it, and I failed you on that. I never.
Matt, you got things to do. That's all right, man.
But
I understand.
but
Man.
no,
You didn't fail me.
no, I failed myself then, because I mean that was I was honored that you asked me to do that, but I'm so disorganized and everything falls by the wayside. Like I swear it's the worst. So
You're doing your part now, man. We appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope it helps you sell more books. I mean, obviously it's been doing well. I've been hearing about it a lot, and you had a lot of people do blurbs though. I think Charlie Fennell, right?
Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody
Scotty
loves Charlie.
Hartwig.
Scott Hartwig, that's a good one.
Yeah, Scott really. I mean, when those people, I mean, blurbs, and you expect people are going to come back and say something nice, right? But what I got out of it is they were genuine in what they were saying, and that really meant a lot,
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, coming from those guys, I'm humbled. I tell you, I don't know if you've read Will Green's book on, he's got the trilogy, and he's on the 2nd volume now on Petersburg.
No.
But he talks a lot about the weather, and John and I were, I'm addicted. John's got a life, but I'm over here looking at this guy's book, and he's talking about the weather a lot in August of 1864, the crater, and right after that, these miniature campaigns within the siege, if you will. And he talks a lot about the weather, but, got our handle on some data there. So, yeah. Going back and forth a little bit with the go-between. John Hennessy knows him real well, and I know John. So
I just think it's so cool that they're not writing this stuff down so that they can in 5 years look back at everything and try to predict weather, right? Or try to come up with a way to predict weather. They're just writing it down in case you guys meet each other one day and want to write a book about the Battle of Gettysburg and the weather. And then here it all is, like that's so cool. I guarantee you nobody was thinking that, but that's what happened.
These are volunteers who had more than a passing interest in the weather. They weren't scientists in general. I mean,
yeah, right.
The professions of the observers varied. I think Jacobs was an exception, being a university professor, but I was sincere when I said that people who volunteer to do this, they genuinely care about the environment, and they understand the importance of taking data. Mm-hmm. They don't really know how their data is going to be used down the road, but they do understand it's important to chronicle and to put numbers on it.
Yeah.
And this is still true today.
Sure.
There are weather observers in this country who were given instruments by the National Weather Service, and they simply say, I want to be the volunteer in my town to collect the weather data. And they do it for 5 years, and then they do it for 10 years, and then they do it for 20. This is not uncommon.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have been uncommon then. There just are people who are passionate about observing nature.
Yeah. No,
and Jacobs he's got, they don't just record straight data. There's a comment section on these reports. So he's talking about the first time you hear spring peepers on any given year, the first emergence of the crocus.
Right.
I love
he's
the
talking
peepers.
about the time he sees auroras
Huh.
from Gettysburg. It's
Really?
dark there, right?
Yeah.
You can see things. And so there's great stuff there. I've talked to John many times. I said, man, in my next life, I'm going to be a student with him and go drilling down on all this old stuff, because it's so rich. Wanted to tell you, the weather observer in Leidensburg, Jacob Bell, related by marriage to Professor Jacobs. I couldn't remember the exact name, and I messed that up when we were at the and corrected myself. But he married Jacob's sister, Anna Maria Jacobs Bell. So there's that interest John's talking about.
Yeah.
These people love the weather, and there's a nexus between these folks.
No, but I
Hey, guys,
admit it.
I hate to bail, but I have to go.
Okay, John,
Yeah,
go
me
ahead.
too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I
This
don't
has
know.
been, Matt, I'm very appreciative of you doing this.
I'm appreciative of your time.
And
Thank you.
I hope to meet you sometime, maybe this summer in Gettysburg.
Likewise. I'm serious about the green screen thing. I think it would be
I know
fun.
you are. I know you are, and I can produce the maps to put in the green screen.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, if you could do that, that'd make it a lot easier. Yeah.
And I might even be able to produce animated maps.
That's what yeah. If
like,
you
an animated GIF that could play.
That would be enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be fine. I think
That'd
that
be
would be a
cool.
lot of fun. All right, guys. Thank you very
All right.
much. I'll
All
talk
right,
to you
be
later.
safe,
Bye-bye.
Matt.
You too.
Stay
See you,
warm,
Jeff.
brother.
Thanks.
Good seeing you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Still some people in there. 8 of you. How you been? How you been? Sorry, I'm short. Not short, but I'm small on the screen there. But yeah. I hope you're doing well. I hope the cold isn't so cold. And whatnot. That's what I hope. That's what I hope. Let's shut this bitch down. Shut down. Shutting down. There we go. Now you see nothing. Thank you for that, Peter. I appreciate that. Ken, thank you very much. Just goes to show that no history topics are boring as long as the people preserving it are passionate about the subject. Amen to that, right? I mean, right? A freaking men to that. You got to be passionate. Susan, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I got to tell you, I was, right before the show, I called Cindy. I'm like, I don't know if I'm having a heart attack or an anxiety attack, but I need the spring to show up really soon. Really soon. And I'm like, I am just beat. It fucking sucks. But this kind of put me in a good mood. I thought that was a faded flat painting to a like 3-dimensional 360-degree video game world to me. When you all these details makes it so much more real. And yeah, Eric, credit desktop. That's the show desktop. So there's a lot of pictures and songs and sound effects and all these things that I need for editing and doing the show in here. Yeah, there's a lot of shit on that. I don't even know what it is. I should probably clear most of that out, actually, that desktop. You should see the desktop here. The literal, actual desktop. It's just full of shit. It's just full of shit. All right, let's see here. All we next is a Battlefield Drive. All we need is a Battlefield Drive. Really liked it. Really killed it tonight. Thank you, Tori. Maybe I should do these shows after anxiety attacks or heart attacks. And then, because maybe I'm like better that way. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, I got a lot more on this pad. What was it? What did I want to tell you? I'll tell you a couple things. I had a good conversation yesterday with this character named Derek, who's moving out here. He's a videographer. He has a very successful, he works for a hunting supply company, and he's got a very successful YouTube channel that he produces for them. And we had a long heart-to-heart yesterday, and I said, Derek, get your fucking ass out here. No pressure, but I'm looking to you to be the guy to take some things off my plate to the point where I'll fall in love with this again. And he said, listen, you son of a bitch, you are going to fall in love with it again. And it's not because of me, it's because you love it. And I said, listen to me, you other son of a bitch. Shut the fuck up and get out here. And when this went back and forth like that for a while, but we talked about a bunch of things that we want to do. And I think those of you who've stuck around with us this long, it was a bad month. I think we lost almost 20 patrons, which the most I've ever lost in a month was 7. So clearly it's fallen apart, right? But the things that we have planned, which we won't be able to get to till the spring because his move-in date is March 19th, so got to give him a week or two to acclimate. But we have a couple of new things planned for the spring and summer months that we're going to go out and shoot. We're going to really work on building up the YouTube channel properly and social media, getting that going and getting it all to be symbiotic. He claims that this is what he does for his work, and this is what he's going to do for addressing Gettysburg. And so that was a promising conversation. We've had several of them like that, but it's good. It's good to talk to people who are interested in things, you know. Really killed this night. Might need sertraline. Helps me. I've heard that. What is that? Sertraline. I've heard that. A friend of mine, got into microdosing ketamine, and he quit drinking after doing it for 8 days or something like that, or 8 weeks. I forget what it was. But that's what it was. He hasn't had a drink in 8 years since he did that. And he's become like an advocate for it. And he's like, I'm friends with certified, apparently there's doctors that do this stuff, and it helps with various things. But one of the things, this is interesting. I might have told you this on a drive before, but it's worth repeating. They started studying the effects of microdosing ketamine when they noticed data from Vietnam veterans, particularly those who were wounded to the point of needing amputation. And they found that the ones who were treated for pain with ketamine had a lower percentage or a lower suicide rate than those who were treated for pain with morphine and other types of drugs. And so that made them go, like CNC Music Factory. And so it was Harvard or Yale or both. I think it was one of them. One of the big ones. They did a years-long study on the effects of ketamine. And they found that when microdosed under medical supervision, it somehow gets rid of depression and alcoholism and all these other things and addictions and stuff, which sounds counterintuitive because, every addict that I've ever known at one point or another played around with ketamine. But of course, they didn't do it in medical doses. So I don't know. It's interesting stuff. But of course, it's not like you can go to any old doctor, around here and say, can we talk about ketamine therapy? Because they're going to look at you like you're fucking crazy. But, retrained or sertraline is an antidepressant, but works for anxiety. Nah, just a little bump in the road. Is Tad done fooling around? Yes, he's done. And then he got the flu. So he's sick this week. Eric, I told him, I'm like, it's probably just a cold and you're exhausted. Eric says, rocked the Addressing Gettysburg hoodie all last week on vacation. Thank you. Disney World. All right. I bet if you went into Frontierland, is Frontierland still a land there, or did they get rid of that? Peter says, 4 years ago, I thought anxiety was BS, but when I got it, I was effed. Oh, I was the same way. I always thought it was a bullshit thing that just wimpy people used to say they had. And then I thought I was having a heart attack, and I went to the doctor, and they're like, they put me up to the EKG and everything, and they're like, no, you're actually got a very healthy heart. What are you feeling? And I told them, and they're like, maybe what's going on in your life? And I go, nothing good. And they're like, well, maybe it's anxiety, stress, And it is definitely stress, because I just recently got a blood test done, checking all the hormones and everything. And everything's good, except my cortisol was like pinned to the top of the scale. And so the doctor's like, there's nothing I can give you for the cortisol. You have to just figure out a way to calm down. And I was like, I play the lottery every week. And they're like, well, that's not going to work. And I go, if I win, it will. Because I worry about money. That's my big problem, is I worry about money. And I unfortunately tie my self-worth to what's in my bank account. And it's a terrible way to live. Terrible way to live. I recommend not doing it. I take vitamin D and K. I take D3 and K, what is it, K1 or K2, whatever. You got to take them both to avoid heart issues, I believe is what the K2 does. So yeah, I take that. Do I have any back issues? Back and neck? Yeah. I have really bad back issues. And the shoveling did not help it. Today is the first day my back is not terribly killing me. I was walking hunched over for the last when did it snow? Saturday? Sunday? When we shovel? Whenever the hell it was. No, when did it snow? I don't know. Point is, whenever the hell it snowed, I was shoveling, and then I basically keeled over, and I said to Cindy, I'm calling the neighbor, and I'm giving him $60 to bring a snowblower over. And he did. And he said, I would have done this for free because you're my neighbor. And I said, well, then give me the fucking money back. But he kept it and ran. But I'm buying a snowblower this year because I know once I do, it'll never snow again. It'll never snow again. Let's see. Matt says, take care of yourself, Matt. We want to enjoy your company for many more years. Hey, I'd like to enjoy yours for many more years. So let's all take care of ourselves, right? Let's all do that. Let's all take care of ourselves. Yeah, I don't want to stop doing this. I love doing this. I was saying to Cindy just before, I've been doing this 7 years. And I have not stuck with anything unless I was forced to, like school, for 7 years. I have not stuck with one job for 7 years, one girlfriend. I have not stayed with anything this long. And so she's like, oh, so you got like the 7-year itch. And I go, I don't know if it's a 7-year itch or if it's just, I just can't do the same old thing over and over and over again. And especially, I'm a team guy. I'm not a solo guy. Like I can't do it all by myself. I don't have that in me. Like I like to I feed off of other people. That's why my favorite thing that I did in the last 12 months was that commercial with Mike and Court and Tad, because that was a pure collaboration. It was Tim Day's idea. The start of it was Tim Day's idea. I took that idea and I built absurdity on top of it in an outline. And then I pulled Court and Tad and Mike together in the room here. And I said, all right, here's the outline. Now, what are we going to say? And we just came up with, stupid shit to say, but that was also getting the point across. And then we went out and shot it. And that was the most fun I had because that is what I've always thrived on, which is whatchamacallit there? Collaboration. Yes, that's it. Hang on one second. You know what I'll do? Hold on. Okay, yeah. So I always thrived on that type of stuff. My strength is finding what is good about somebody and pulling it out of them and showing it to everybody else, and then finding ways for it to all work together. Like a lot of the people that are on the show or around the show, whether it's AG Today or like the history shows, like they're not just like anybody, right? Like they're what am I trying to say? They're people who I think are a complement to the other personalities on the show. I don't want everybody to be the same. That's boring. But in everybody being different, you still have to jive with each other. And that's kind of a hard thing to do because you have to find the people. I've been very lucky with Addressing Gettysburg because you got to understand, I've been chipping away at this since I learned how to press record on a tape recorder. And when Addressing Gettysburg happened, with Eric first joining the team, and well, actually first it was Bob Steenstra. He was the first one as my like co-host. And Bob and I always got along great. We've known each other for 20 years, over 20 years now. What years? Yeah, 21 years it'll be this year. And he's like an uncle to me. So we've always gotten along very well. So he was a good first co-host to have. And then Eric, the producer, came in to kind of support us. But then Bob stopped doing it because he, let's be honest, he fell for the COVID stuff and he believed it. And so he didn't want to be around anybody. And so we're like, well, we don't care. So we're going to be around each other still. And so we continue to do it. But then kind of Eric kind of stepped up as the co-host and he was good, co-host and producer. Then we did AG Today and Veronica came in. And Veronica, I remember when I asked her to do it and she was like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if I'd be good at that or whatever. And I would just be like, I know you'd be good at it. And she's like, well, how do you know? And I said, because when you and me and your mom go out to dinner, we do a show for her the whole time with our conversation. And you make fun of me and it's funny. And it's like, it's not mean, but it's biting. It's not mean spirited, but it can be mean. And but it's always funny. And you make me laugh, which is very rare. There's not a lot of ladies that have made me laugh in life. Sorry. I know that's a horrible thing we're not allowed to say, but it's true. They just haven't. And Susie Essman makes me laugh. Susie on Curb Your Enthusiasm. She makes me laugh. Catherine O'Hara, the late great. Oh my God, what a fucking month this has been. Catherine O'Hara, Moira Rose, one of the funniest women ever. But on the whole, they don't. Veronica makes me laugh. And she was fantastic from her first day. There was no adjustment period for her. She was great. And then when she got her job with the DA and time is no longer a thing that she has, Bethany slid right into that role and different personality, but she works very well. And then we've accumulated Courtney and what's his face, Mikey B. And we've had a lot of fun, and they're all good. They're all good in their own way. And so I hope we're going to be able to keep it going and growing because we've got bigger plans, we've got bigger ideas, but as long as it's me, it's never going to go anywhere. It's going to stagnate and shrivel up and die on the vine. So we got to wait for these other people to get in place. We got to wait for Tad to get off his sick ass and get back in here. Tad is great too, by the way. Tad is 23 years old, and he is very wise and mature for his age. But he loves the production side of things. That's what he went to school for, and that's what I've looked for since I started doing this. I've always been the only one on the team that knows how to produce anything and knows how to run the gear and all that. Eric learned how to do it. He was great because he had no background in this, but he taught himself how to operate the computers and cameras and everything. And he figured it out. That's what I love about Eric. Eric is, he's a true sergeant. Like he was a sergeant in the Army, and he's a true sergeant. He anticipates needs. He, if he didn't anticipate a need, but he sees a need, he immediately jumps in, and before you even realize the pickle you're in, Eric was there with a solution. He was fantastic. He really was, and I don't think he thought he was, and I don't think he thought I thought he was, but he was, and he was great. Yeah. So, what is this here? My talent seems to be kids and funerals. So you have a lot of kids and then kill them? How does that work? Eric says, no other history-themed podcast allows the same amount of audience participation as AG. Keep it up. Oh, well, I think that is very important. And I think you'll see when the Tavern Talks come out, and if you come out on any of our Get Out of the Car tours, I am really making an effort. I don't have the right language to explain it. I don't think I'm not always good with a quippy, witty tagline, but I'm trying to democratize this stuff. Last year was it was a bad year for me, but it was a good year. I always try to not have a bad year be only a bad year. By the end of that year or the beginning of the next, that bad year has to be turned into a good year. And by that, I mean all the things that were bad about it come with, as you know, you've heard Tony Robbins and all these people say this. They come with a good thing, a silver lining. Every cloud has a silver lining, and it's true. But you have to have the maturity and the, wisdom to recognize it. Sometimes, for me, I have to let the emotion burn off, and sometimes some emotions take longer than others. The Tavern Talk started out as a spite project. When I lost the winter lectures, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do my own lecture series next year, and we're going to make the audience more important than the historian. And we're going to let the audience participate from the opening words all the way through to the end. We're not going to stand at a podium. We're going to do it at a tavern, and it's going to be casual. And it's about time that these audiences that go to all of these different things, no matter where it is, the park, ACHS, wherever you go, you're spoken to or at, not with. And that's nothing against any of them. I only point them out because that's who we have around town that do all these things. Anywhere you go to a historic lecture or event or whatever, that's what you're going to get, right? Because that's how it's always been done. What a bore. What a bore. What a bore. I was at CWI. Now, CWI, it's like a mix. And this is why Pete Carmichael was so great. And I miss him so much still. I just was thinking about him yesterday. Something, I forgot what it was. Maybe I want to call him. And then I remembered I couldn't. And, but that's how you know. There's a few people, my grandfathers, one of my grandmothers, Pete Carmichael. I think that's about it. That you have in your life, and they were so influential on you and your relationship with them was nothing but good. That after they die, you have to remind yourself you can't pick up the phone and call them anymore because they're still alive to you. You know what I mean? I know you know what I mean. We're all human. We've all experienced these things. And Pete's one of those guys. He's one of those guys. I still can't believe he's gone. But I was thinking about, some local politics bullshit between a couple of history entities here. And I was like, Pete wouldn't stand for that. He would take the Little Prince and sit him down, and he would say, why are you doing that? Like, there's no reason to be that way. We can all work together. We can all get along. And I try very hard to be like that. And it's not always easy. Anyway, the way he did CWI and the way he always would argue with me about being a historian and all that crap and the way he didn't care if you had a PhD after your name or if you were the janitor, you were just as important in the public study of history as he was, or as Carrie Janey was, or Jen Murray, or any of the people that he would have come to CWI. And I thought that's what was so great about Pete and everything that he did, all the events he did, because it was about everybody. And so I want to try to continue that because nobody else does. And so, audience participation in these shows, in the Ask a Guides, and in the tavern talks. Hopefully we can get the budget to do more of those sometime in the future. And as you'll see this year at the Get Out of the Car tours, everything that we're going to do now is going to have some feeling of we're all here as a group of friends, even though many of us never met each other before, but we're all here with a shared interest, and we all have our own thoughts. Oh, that's why I brought up CWI, because I was at CWI and somebody was giving a lecture. I don't remember who, I don't remember what it was about, but the first guy that gets up, the lecturer went over by a couple minutes and he said, I've only got 3 minutes. So let's take some questions. And there was like 4 people at each microphone. And the first guy gets up and he says, we all know that, yada, yada, yada. And he proceeds to give a 2-minute preamble to his question, just to show us all that he's done his homework. And then he gets to the question. And the question boils down to, what was Joshua Chamberlain's favorite color? It wasn't that, and it wasn't Chamberlain, I don't think. But my point is, that nobody else got to ask a question. Now, while everybody wanted to strangle this guy, I sat back and I went, what's really at play here? And I thought to myself, this guy has a normal job, right? A regular job like most people do. And he probably has a family. I'm making this up in my head, right? But it's probably all true. And he's got a family. And he does things with the family after work. And once in a while, probably before bed, he gets that moment. That was the chair. That wasn't me. He gets that moment where he's alone. And he gets to pour himself into a history book. And this is his escape. And it means so much to him because it's his escape. It's where he comes alive after the monotony of work and the monotony of family. This is where he comes alive. This is where he's him. And so when he gets to be in a room of 300 Civil War nerds and get up to a microphone to a author and speak on a subject that this author wrote about, that he himself is very interested in and very learned on. Learned in or learned on? He's learned on the subject. Yes, learned on. He gets up and diarrhea comes out of his mouth. Because it means something to him to be heard. That's what I took away from that. Now, if I could find this guy and ask him, is this what you're really thinking? he probably would be like, what the hell are you talking about? He doesn't think that deep. But that's not the point. The point is it gave me the idea to start democratizing our events, our shows, and make it about you guys as much as it is about the historians we have on. Because I know if that guy wants to be heard and has ideas, so do you. So does everybody else. And look, tonight we just did a show about weather. And like I said to John, if you were, and other people like you, I'm sure, but if you were never interested in this stuff, we wouldn't know this stuff. Someone has to have that weird, autistic, nerdy thing that they hone in on that everybody else is like, what? But then they hone in on it, they research it, they put the work together, they put it out in a book, and people read it and they go, my God, that's fascinating. Yeah. It's like anything else. Good music, good food. You don't know it's good until you put it in your ear or you put it in your mouth and chew and go, my God, that tastes delicious. Who would have thought snails could be so good? Love me some escargot. So, yeah, that was a really long tirade based on something that somebody said 40 minutes ago. So yeah, but that's it. I'm trying to make you guys feel like you're a part of it because you are. And like, here's the other thing. We all make our living from you guys, but I directly make my living from you guys. Without you, I can't do this as much as I do. It would go back to being a hobby. And you had better bet your bottom dollar that I don't take that for granted, and I appreciate the shit out of it because I hated doing this as a hobby because I love doing it so much. So the fact that you enable me to do this as a living, I feel like you're not members of my museum, right? You're not in that sense. I mean, you're members of Patreon, but it's not the same because museums, they also get these big grants and things like that, and they're going to have their jobs. You know, if they lose 20 of you in a month, they're still going to be around. I lose 20 of you in a month and I start having a panic attack. And so, I feel, I hate to use this word because it's not, but it feels like a family, at least from the ones that I hear from. And so it means something to me a little bit more than it might mean to somebody who's at the helm of a large museum or, foundation or whatever. And I'm not putting any of them down. I'm just saying it's a different mindset. They're going to have a job no matter what. They've got big donors. When they need to put a roof on a new building or something, they go and hit somebody up for 25 grand and they get it like that. Me, I got to find that person who might have 25 grand. And then I got to build up the nerve to say, I have an idea for whatever. And we need to do this. It's a different story. You guys, not all of you have been with me from the beginning, but once you've come on the scene and come into my attention, I feel like, we're kind of in it together. It sounds corny, but it's true. Yeah, so I want you guys to be more involved because you mean a lot to me. And I think the audience that doesn't participate and doesn't communicate with me the way you guys do, I think they would like you. I like you. And so I want to hear more from you on the show. And I think the audience would like hearing more from you on the show. Not so much Grant, but everybody else. Ah, God, Grant. I love Grant. I really do love Grant. Okay, wow. Okay, okay. Let me go back here. Vitamin D. There we go. I know the feeling. Matt Gillespie, take care of yourself. Okay, get a Toro snowblower. I'll see what they have. I'm looking in the $750 range. I'm not looking at anything crazy. Gene says I'm late again, going back to the beginning to enjoy it all. All right, go back. Matt says, I think you found your niche. I agree. Tori says, I hate getting stuck in a rut. That's what it is. Stuck in a rut. But you know what gets me out of a rut? A piping hot cup of little ground top. No, that's it. I'm stuck in a rut. Ah, boy, got to do a satirical coffee commercial. That could be fun. I had an idea for one the other day and I forgot it. I was falling asleep and I go, oh, I'll remember that in the morning, and I totally forgot it. Gene says that if I missed a discussion on snow blowing, get a Cub Cadet 3-stage. Okay, thank you. Ken Wyman says it all works. Don't question why. There you go. Tori says, I still remember the porch talks popping up on my Facebook, and I was like, why is this showing? The porch chats. Yeah, I got to do those again. We got to get our back deck. We're going to screen it in because the sun, it's on the south side of the house, and the sun beats on that side of the house all day long in the summertime. And at sunset, it shines right in your eyes from the corner, from the west. It kind of comes in, and it's, we got to do something to protect us from the sun there. But I would do them from the back porch or the deck, whatever. If I do them again, I should do them again. I almost did one this afternoon from my lazy boy. Best time I've spent on the air. Oh, thank you, Ken. Tori says, my talent seems to be kids. Oh, I read that one. Okay. Eric says, no other history theme. Oh, I read that. Okay. That's what got me going. Okay. Tori says, you've been very lucky. Yeah, you're goddamn right. I have been very lucky. Yeah, I agree. I have been lucky. Ken says, need help? Just ask. All right, Ken, can I have a $25,000 donation? No, wait, what was it for the tavern talks? 74,000. Sorry. Tori says, tell him to get the sand out of his. That's one of my favorite expressions when one of my male friends is acting cranky like me. If I lived closer, I'd enjoy helping you. Matt, you're helping. The way everything you're doing helps. You're already helping. I appreciate that. And I think we'll be okay this year. We just have to wait for Tad to heal, and Derek to move here. And I think you're going to see a big change. Actually, I hope. Tori says, Matt Gillespie says, Tori, I work in a funeral home. Are you in that business as well? Yeah, I wonder what he meant by funerals. Maybe he puts people... Kids love me like a cartoon character. In funerals, I break the sadness, not intentionally. Oh, like you trip and fall and knock over the casket. And then at first people are like shocked, but then they realize how funny it looked and then they laugh. Is that what you mean? He says, I do not, but as many. Okay, yeah. So Tori says, I do want to own a cemetery or do Viking funerals or SpaceX funerals. Viking funerals would be cool. He says, Matt, it's you time to be that person, be the inspiration. I could try, but Pete Carmichael was the scarves and the hair. Come on. After 40, there are 0 F's given. That is true. It gets better with every year too, right? At 47, I have that many more F's given off the table. Not a lot of them is what I'm saying. Matt, I believe you have a true gift / concern for people. It's one of the things I admire about you. Thank you. I do. When you get to a point where you want to kill yourself, you learn to value not only yourself, but other people as well. And just the fragility of life. And that's why when we do the show and we talk about the soldiers, and I'm thinking about their suffering, because that's what they're doing. Yet they're still pushing through, and then they get into this situation where lead and iron are flying at them, and they see their buddies go down in horrible, ghastly wounds, and yet they continue on. I don't understand what that is. I don't get it, but they did it, and thank God they do it. I couldn't do it. So I have a lot of admiration for them, but I just have I know how hard life is not easy. It sucks. And we all have our problems and we all have our bitching moments. And I don't mean like bitching. I just mean like, moments where we just need to bitch. And I've been doing it a lot lately, actually. And I just found that there were really low points in my life where I needed a little bit of empathy if I couldn't find sympathy, and no one around me could do it. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. But I've always been lucky. No, it's not lucky because it's miserable. I've always been a person who can put himself in somebody else's shoes. Thankfully, the people whose shoes I cannot put myself in are serial killers. I can't say it on, what do they call it? S assaulters, those people, or grapists, right? See, I can't get into that. Let's see, murderers and rapists. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't get into that. I don't understand that. Oh, and kleptomaniacs, like I don't get that either. Like, what's the thrill that you're getting? Remember Winona Ryder got in trouble for shoplifting? You're Winona Ryder. You don't have any money? Like you got to shoplift? Because it's not about that. That's the thing. It's not about that. That's not why you steal. And I don't understand that. So I'm glad that the certain things I can understand. I can empathize with who? Name a serial killer. Jeffrey Dahmer, right? All the sad things in his life, all the things that, that brought him to that mental state. I can go, oh, that sucks, Jeff. Oh, I understand. Yeah. I'm sorry. What was your response? Oh, try to make a zombie out of roadkill? Oh, it's a little odd. Well, at least you didn't do anything worse than that. What? I'm sorry, what? Oh, you killed one of your lovers and tried to make a zombie out of him so he wouldn't leave, and then you just ate him? Oh. That's where I lose him. I'm like, I can't get there with you. But on the whole, I can empathize with most people I come in contact with. Tori says, speaking of Chamberlain, ask Dennis Fry what character he was in Gods and Generals. Oh, I will. I didn't know he was in Gods and Generals. Actually, I'm supposed to have lunch with him soon. It is a book about questions that people have. We appreciate what you do. Thank you, Ken. Tori says, you're the only podcast I can stick to. Thank you. Why? What is the difference? And the only one that is personable. Well, that's true. You're the flannels and the baldness. Yeah, I know. I'm looking for a new look. I think I'm going to, I like this is a redhead shirt, which it's very thick. So it's warm. And I think it's redhead, right? It's redhead, which is Cabela's brand, I think, or a brand that Cabela's carries. They've got good stuff. But I was saying this to the guys. I was like, I've lost 50 pounds. And I need to start working out. And when I do, I need to have a look when we start doing these videos, and nothing crazy, but this isn't going to cut it, especially in the summertime. So what do I do? And they're like, what about wife beater? And I go, I think you're right. I was thinking the same thing. Let's see. Tori says, Matt, I figured out a gift for you. Can't mail it, but when I get back down there, I'll get it to you. Is it a person? Don't send me a person, please. Please. Borderline pyromaniac here. You can buy thermite online. I don't want to see your search history. Okay, Pete. Eric says, another great show and after show. Thank you. I like doing the after show. I like just talking with you guys. Too bad I couldn't have made it doing a podcast about just anything. I think that's really where I can excel. But a very smart friend of mine, because that's what my podcasts always used to be, like Stern type stuff. Just talk about whatever, make fun of it. But one of my friends, Mark, and he's the guy who came up with the name Addressing Gettysburg, by the way, Mark, and very smart guy. And he said to me, not only did he come up with the name, but years before that, he was telling me when I was doing a podcast, he goes, why don't you do a podcast about Gettysburg? This is in 2008. He's like, you're in Gettysburg. You run a tour company. Like, do a podcast about Gettysburg. And I go, nah, what's that going to do? But I was doing a Stern style show. And he said something that has always stuck with me. And I've given this advice to other people too. And that is, he goes, before Stern was Stern, he spun records. Nobody knew who he was. So he spun records. And in the middle of spinning records, he would say something funny. He would do a skit. And then people started to get to know him and they started to like him. And as time went on and as he moved up and his show grew and he moved to bigger stations, he did less music and more talking and skits because people got to know him. And then eventually it was all Howard because then people cared about what he had to say. He goes, nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares what you have to say about current events. And I knew he was right. I knew he was right about doing a Gettysburg podcast, and I knew he was right that nobody cared about what I had to say about anything because nobody knew who I was. He's like, do something that people will know you for first, and then they'll care what your opinions are. And so I was like, I said, yeah, but right now I'm learning, and I learn through play. So I learn by having fun with it. And so if I'm going to learn how to do broadcasting, podcasting, whatever, I have to have fun doing it. And so we're going to talk about whatever the current events are. We're going to make goofy songs up. We're going to play fart sound effects when Jessica's talking. Jessica was my female co-host at the time. Whatever. That's what we're going to do. And I did that from like 2008 until 2018. And it wasn't the same show. It was like 4 different shows in that era that we did, but it was all the same idea. And then I got sick of fart jokes. I got sick of goofy songs. I got sick of talking about current events because they were getting really fargan depressing. And so my friend Pete says, what about that Addressing Gettysburg idea? Why don't you dust that off and get the hell out of my sight and go back to Gettysburg? And I did, and the rest is history. So, yeah, I can't quit. I've put in too much time, paid too many dues of nothing, no audience, no money. I can't quit. I can't. I'm just really tired. I need to sleep for 2 months, and I've been basically sleeping for the month of January and half of December, but it's very hard for me to pull myself out of it and get back to work. Overalls, I like that, Pete. I'll go with overalls. A different look, a different flannel, or an entire new look? No, an entire new look. Pete says, how about a tuxedo? I like maybe a tuxedo print t-shirt. No, I was thinking, I like Outback Trading Company. I have one of their oiled jackets. I like the way that looks. Earthy, outdoorsy type, that type of look. I look weird if I try to look nice. It doesn't, it's like lipstick on a pig, and everybody else that does it, they, like JD's kind of like the flannel guy. So I don't want to like look the same. I don't want to copy, just JD is the lumberjack. The flannel guy. Chris Maury, he's like, he's Hollywood Chris, like he's a little more coiffed and everything. And, so no, I don't want to go that route. Gary and Tim, they basically look like guides, the short sleeve shirts, the polo shirts, or the button downs. And so that looks taken. I got to do something a little different, I don't know. Cowboy, millionaire, astronaut. Let's see. No. Crop top. That's a good one. Let the old muffin top show. Matt, I like your after shows too. Yeah, thank you. Me too. Tori says, I did a documentary once and forgot I was wearing a mic all day. It got interesting. Oh, that's my worst nightmare. Yeah. The old Frank Drebin situation. I almost did that at one of the tavern talks, but I just as I was about to leave to go to the bathroom, I go, oh, I should probably mute this. I should have just gone in and recreated the Frank Drebin scene. Matt, I think your time is coming. A lot of Civil War films coming up. Yeah, are there? I don't know. That doesn't help me. I don't get asked to do these things, so I was actually banned from Bo's movie, except for that one scene. But I think he had a lobby to allow me in there. Matt Gillespie says, maybe you should go to Regimental Quartermaster Marilyn Sutler and get your... Yeah, that's Marilyn Sutler. I got to go back in there, but it's kind of what I want to do. Like, how I wear the officers' coats or jackets out on the tour, but I'm wearing shorts. Like it's like a goofy clown on LSD type of look. But yeah, we'll see. You really have a known circle. I don't know what that means, Pete. I don't know what that means. Oh, a circle of people? Ken Wyman says bow tie. I like maybe just a t-shirt like this. What is this t-shirt I have on here? It's this one. The what is it? Handmade Patriots. Okay. I think I don't remember which one that is. But anyway, like a t-shirt like that and a little clip-on bow tie. Might attract a different crowd. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Their money's just as green, right? Harry Henderson in a tux. Yeah, that's that's what it would look like if I did the wife beater. I like the bummer cap with the brass AG. Yeah, I love that bummer cap. Eric, the producer, gave me that. We were out on the battlefield during COVID. COVID was a stupid time. The whole thing was an exercise in stupidity. Who's stupid enough to buy all these protocols? But we, around here, first of all, it was great for AG because that's where we grew. Everything spiked during COVID. But we had the whole battlefield to ourselves. And remember, COVID started in March, so we were going into spring, summer, and fall, that nice weather, and we had the whole place to ourselves. It was fantastic. Fantastic. We'd go for walks every day, and the only other people you'd see were other locals. And you'd be like, oh, hey, George. Hey, Tim, how you doing? Oh, Susie, what's going on? And it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. No buses. It was great. I loved it. Do I want another COVID-like situation? No, because they'll do it wrong and people will get hurt again. Finances will get hurt again. I don't want that. But God, something that I couldn't see coming that would give us another spike in numbers would be great. Maybe another tsunami in Japan. I don't know. Does that mean? Because it won't hurt us. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't wish that on anybody. But anyway, my point is that we were out on the battlefield up by the peace light. It was sunsetish, and Eric goes, "You need a kepi or a bummer." And I said, yeah, I do. It's just I always thought I'd look stupid in them. And he had one on. It was another one, and he took it off and he put it on, and took a picture of me. He's like, what do you think? You look stupid? I go, oh, actually, no. It kind of looks good. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I got another one at home. I'll bring it in. Didn't even make me buy it at gunpoint. He just gave it to me. And I thought that was very nice. And I really like it. I was like, yeah, this is good. Because he had it broken in already. And it was faded from use, out in the sun and everything. Like he really gave it a run for its money. So I like that one. Let's see. Online to Ken Women says, not that there's anything wrong with that. No, there's nothing wrong with that. I said their money's just as green. Tori, we are in an age of stupidity. I'll just say, Flashbang Handman. Oh my God. Yeah, don't get me started. Good Civil War films always draw more interest. Yeah, well, there's not going to be a good Civil War film for a long time because Hollywood does not want to touch the Civil War. Speaking of which, some people asked me to remind you, go over to Walk with History's YouTube channel and you can see our searing, scathing, no, they're not scathing or searing, our hard-hitting reviews of North and South. I have another one to record, I think, tomorrow. They're a lot of fun for me to do. It's nice to cleanse the palate every now and then and just have fun and talk about something else you're interested in. I'm not interested in North and South per se, but I'm interested in Hollywood history and filmmaking history and television history. Also, I'm nostalgic for my youth and North and South for whatever reason was I didn't see the whole thing. I saw it in bits and pieces, and I don't know why. I don't have crisp memories of it, but in my vague memory, we're at my grandmother's house. So my mother and father must have been out to dinner or something, and we were being watched, and they came to get us to take us home. And, I remember laying on the floor like this in front of the TV, watching North and South, and that is really where I became interested in the Civil War. I was always kind of interested in history, but 1985, I would have been 7. So, I wasn't really deeply into any of that stuff just yet. So that probably is what got me really started. I mean, I had experience and exposure to the battlefield at Manassas since I was born because of my relatives living nearby, and we would often go out there. But that's not the same to a 7-year-old as a movie or a TV show. So anyway, we have fun talking about North and South. So go and check that out when you get a chance. That Gray House movie comes out plus Red Badge of Courage and Gettysburg 1863. Yeah, okay. I don't know what the Gray House is, but these are low budget movies. I don't know. I'll give everything a chance, but in general, low budget history movies. Sorry. I can't get into them. I get too lost in the limitations of their budget. So I just now Gettysburg 1863. A lot of professionals on this one. Professional actors. The crew was really good. This was a different experience than a Gettysburg Christmas. It was a higher budget. Bo really rallied the troops for this one. And the town got behind this doubly. So I expect it to be better than most low budget films because I saw the work that went into it and I saw the quality of craftsmen they had. But, typically if it's not costing $100 million for them to go back in time, like Lincoln, for example, I believe that's 1865. Every aspect of every shot of Lincoln tells me it's 1865, and I can suspend disbelief. Even when someone's dressed impeccably, they still look dirty. And the way they color grade the film, like the whole thing from stem to stern, soup to nuts, $100 million film looks like you've stepped back in time. And so when I see $1 million or a $500,000 history film, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a chance, but I'm usually very disappointed very early on. But if I watch it just for a story, well, those even disappoint me. I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. The 90s had a ton of Civil War films, always draw. Yeah. Blue and Gray was my movie. I only watched that once. I'm going to have to revisit that one. Because they actually, Gettysburg features in that, right? It's one of the characters is from Gettysburg, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you could wear a Union greatcoat around town. Well, I'm actually going to get John, and I've been talking about this for 2 years, but I want a greatcoat. I want one. I'm trying to think of where I've seen it. But I want one. I don't want like the sky blue ones. I want one that an officer would wear, but I want one that an officer would wear that he got made at some fine tailor in Philadelphia. You know what I mean? I like the cape. I like the heavy wool. I'm going to get a custom made overcoat. Problem, I went into Maryland Sutler and I said, I want to get an overcoat or a greatcoat, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well it's over here." And I go, "No. I need to get a custom made one." And I said, "Because I'm not a reenactor. I want to have a nod to the past, but I want it to be fully functional in the modern day. I also want a concealed carry pocket." So it's going to have to be. And they were like, "Well, but they didn't have that in those days," or like whatever things I was saying. No, I'm like, I know. But I can't go to J.C. Penney and find what I'm looking for. But I know you guys can make it because it's based on the old stuff. But I want a little bit of new stuff in there, And I would wear it around town. You better believe my ass would be wearing that coat. I should have got it last year when I said I would, because I'd be using the hell out of it this year. Let's see, Matt Gillespie. I think my first Civil War movie was Red Badge of Courage. It might have been mine too. Or it was North and South. It was around the same age when my dad started bringing Grey House. Costner and Morgan Freeman produced. Oh, well, that'll be good. Lincoln was underrated. I agree. Tori says, so was Copperheads. No, Copperheads was horrible. And The Conspirators. Yeah, The Conspirator was good. Copperheads was not good. I'm sorry. I hope Ron Maxwell's not watching, but it's not good. It's worse than Guns and Generals. That's what I'm saying. Get a Greatcoat by Guy Gaines. I had contacted Guy around the same time I contacted Marilyn Sutler, and that conversation fizzled out, so he clearly wasn't interested in my money. Let's see. Ken says, need to look like a general. I agree. Yeah, I need to walk in a room and you need to know I'm in charge now, right? I'm the captain now, except I'm the general. I'm the general now. Guy has produced some great ones. Oh, he's fantastic. No, I would love to have one from him. He's very good. And I think he would get it. But I'm going to go to my neighbor across the street. And I'm going to get it from him. All right, everybody. It is 4:00 in the morning. My back is hurting from sitting here, so now I got to get up and stretch and roll down the stairs and go outside. What do I have tomorrow? Do I have a show tomorrow that you guys can watch? I'm really, really dragging ass editing the Bruce Boxleitner interview. Oh, we're going to the Totem Pole tomorrow for a tour, me and the crew. So I shared the Totem Pole tickets again today. Please come out to that. Don't make me beg. Please come out to that. Okay? Please come out to that. And the reason I say please come out to that is because we want to have a good showing. We want to show the theater people that we're fun and they would like us. And they should get into their history. It's their history too. It's their history too. And I don't think they think that. I think they think it's our history. But it's theirs as well. And we're going to tell them about the Battle of Schrute Farms. I'm telling you, Gettysburg Candle Company, Mikey B, I hate to do this for him. I hate to do anything that helps him. But this is the peach orchard. And it smells, oh God, that magnificent bastard. It smells like a real goddamn peach and I want to bite it, but I can't because it is wax. Now, it says it's a vegan soy candle. Now, see, soy is bad for your testosterone. All right. Yeah. $6 hours is tough, but maybe. You know what, Peter? You need a break, okay? Take a mini vacation. You come down. You come to the show. You have a little fun with everybody. You meet everybody. And you get to be part of the show. And then you come to Gettysburg. Everything's fun. Did Mike go to the UK? Not yet. He's not abandoned me yet. I think he's going in March or end of February. I don't know. Whatever. All I know is this. He's a traitor. He is a Benedict Arnold, if you will. And we don't appreciate him leaving us during recording season for an entire month to go to England. And so, I hope he has fun in London, Stan. All right, ask Mike to make scented wax lips. That'll be good. Then Cindy will never stop kissing me. Oh, Cindy, just there with my wax lips. Oh, it's just me and my watermelon flavored lips. All right, I'm done. You guys have yourselves a wonderful day. And you know what I'm going to do so that you don't just leave to the sound of nothing? I'm going to let you hear something that'll make you tap your feet. And here it is. You guys have a great night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around with me in the after show here. It was fun to talk to you. My feelings of anxiety attacks have gone away. It helped. There's no more tightness in the chest. I can breathe again. And that burning sensation on my skin is gone. Okay. Thanks for the help, folks. And I will talk to you later.
A car crashed into a building. That's the 31 this year. If they didn't put those